Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is December 8th, and this is a regular board meeting of Independent School District 832, the Mahtomedi Public School District. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the Republic, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call of attendance, please.
Done.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda
So moved.
by Paul,
Second.
seconded by Kevin? Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Kelly,
Second.
seconded by Julie. Any discussion? Julie.
I'd just like to say it's exciting to see all of the great opportunities for our students showing up for approval for field trips and exciting adventures outside the classroom.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, presentations and recognition.
Okay. I'm going to the podium.
I'm excited we have such a packed house for this recognition and the other recognition we have this evening. But I get to first recognize our outgoing school board members, and I will start with Kevin. So for the past 17 years, Kevin Donovan has represented the Mahtomedi area community as a champion for public education, with a particular heart for advancing equity within our schools. Kevin leverages relationships he has in our community, business, civic leaders, and he advocates for programs to support excellence for all. And he recognizes regularly that a child's excellence presents in many ways. Kevin serves and promotes Century College Foundation and Northeast Metro 916, who are here this evening. And he has a real commitment to advocating for multiple pathways for student success. Kevin Donovan is a connector. He intrinsically knows the value of authentic relationships, and he builds them naturally with our community leaders, students, elected officials, professional organizations. Nothing brings Kevin more joy than connecting with students and marveling at their accomplishments. Kevin has served as the MSBA president and a district director. He's a current delegate chair of the MSBA Insurance Trust, where he served for 12 years or so. And you may know this, that last school year, he was named to a member of the All-State School Board. Kevin Donovan has served Mahtomedi schools with integrity and enthusiasm, and we will miss you on this school board, Kevin. And I have for you a bell. Here it is, to commemorate your years of service with us. So Kevin Donovan, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
And maybe we can take a picture at the end with everyone, if that's okay. Maybe I'll just stop here because there might be others who want to say a few words. Kevin, I don't need to hog the mic here.
Who's gonna go? Just Lucy.
Kevin, I want to thank you as a board member who came on midterm and didn't have a usual orientation. You have been instrumental in my development as a board member in terms of being not only a role model, but always willing to answer questions and spend time with me and help me understand complexities, especially at the state level that I was not aware of and did not understand before. So your dedication, not only to the community and to our students, but to the development of this board needs to be recognized. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, Lucy.
Kelly.
Kevin started tonight with at the recognition, and he said, "This is the closest I'll ever be to being in the classroom as a classroom teacher and being on the school board, and what an honor it is to serve our community." And that's just who Kevin is. He is someone who is always put students first. He's a great human and a great school board member, and has contributed so much to this community for so long, long before I ever knew much about Mahtomedi schools at all. And so for your expertise, your friendship, for your years of service, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kelly.
Kevin, it has been an honor to serve with you. I, it's hard to even know what to say, except you're such a person of high integrity and commitment to the students of our district. It has been a total joy to work with you, and I know we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Kevin, I just want to say it's been a pleasure to work with you on the board here in the short time that I've been on it, but also very much appreciated working with you on MAIF. What Barb said about being a connector is that can't be said enough, and how important that is in a community, the way you build bridges and build connections between people. That's what it takes to make for a successful and strong community, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
And I want to add my 2 cents, just say thank you so much for your friendship and serving on this board with you. Julie used the word joy, and that was the word that comes to mind for me as well. I always enjoy our conversations. I just really value the work that we've done. I know that we were passionate about the literacy piece, and I feel like you've been instrumental in helping push along that our district will continue to do better in that area. And I just think all the contributions you've made will be lasting because it's pushed us to be better. And I hope we will all follow in that in your same footsteps. And I look forward to what's ahead and continuing to work with you in other capacities.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay. I know, Kevin, you had said that you wanted to say some things. I don't know if this was the time you wanted to do that, or I forgot to ask you that part.
It does not matter. I can wait until after you do the
Okay.
same for-
Okay, great. Well, we also have Julie McGraw here that we would like to honor this evening. And Julie has served as Mahtomedi Public Schools as a board member since 2014, but her commitment to our schools began long before then. Julie has been a longtime proponent of creating outdoor learning spaces. She was an integral part of the establishment and continued development of the OHA Nature Trail. And each year we know Julie is going to volunteer to order and plant trees throughout our campuses. And I understand that she is leading the charge to plant 400 trees this year, and she's already got that in the works for us. I've always enjoyed attending biology presentations with Julie because her curiosity and her deep conversation about content with the students is fun to watch and to learn from as well. You have questions that challenge me, I'll say, but not the students. They were right there with you. Julie's hard work on the 2014 levy campaign brought her to board service. While serving on the board, she served as vice chair and clerk. She takes notes and remembers those notes like no one else. We often joke about whether or not Julie has a binder for that because of the way she stores our history. Julie has served as a member of the MSBA Delegate Assembly, regularly advocating for our district and public education at the Capitol. She's made connections with board members throughout the metro area that have really served us well. We will miss Julie's steel trap of memory that can pull forward stories of the district, the history of decisions, and that little detail you just mentioned in passing. Thank you, Julie.
You go first.
I can start again. Julie, we started about the same time, but somehow I was labeled your mentor and I'm not sure why. I had 2 more months experience than you did. So, but what it did is find a very important bond and relationship between us, I think, in terms of learning together, that I was new like you and we had to figure a lot of things out together. We had help and guidance from experienced board members, but we spent a lot of time thinking together and questioning things together and really learning and thinking about things differently, which is really important to doing what's best for our kids in terms of moving us forward. And I can't thank you enough for all the conversations and time you've spent with me to help me be a better board member. So I couldn't do it without you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy.
So Julie, when I started on the board 2 years ago, Julie had a binder for me. And so right off the bat, you know, I had a mentor in Julie, and the fact that she had resources for me. Her attention to detail is second to none. I feel like I'm not sure that I'll ever live up to that. So set your bar a little lower because Julie's attention to detail and having the resources at her fingertips is a huge asset and has been. So thank you, Julie, for all of the years serving Mahtomedi schools, our students, the outdoor opportunities. That's amazing as well. And I wish you the best in whatever occupies your time from this point moving forward, because she was so heavily invested that I know that it's something that she won't just sit idle. She'll find something else to volunteer and give back. So thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Kelly.
Evan.
Well, Julie, it has been such an absolute pleasure to serve with you. The attention to detail, you are legendary for that. Hopefully you're going to give the Ark of the Covenant to somebody so that it can continue. But your attention to detail is amazing. And if ever I had a question, which oftentimes I did, I knew the person I could call to get the answer. You'd pull that out and tell me. It's a pleasure serving on the facilities committee. That was really, we did some good work on that, and you were a great leader on that committee. Thank you also for helping, as did a few others, but thank you for helping with your special recipe for potatoes at the May gala dinners. And they always turned out great. You always kind of calmed our nerves because you had experience with this, and it's like I was on edge and nervous, and you're just like, we'll get through this, we'll be just fine. So thank you for that work. And thanks most especially for your friendship.
Thank you, Kevin.
Julie, I'd just like to take a minute to quote Muhammad Ali, and I've mentioned this before, but I think it's fitting for you as well, that the service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. And not that you're going to be going anywhere anytime soon. I think you are going to be reserved a special place. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
And I want to echo everyone has already said, your organizational skills and your attention to detail, I think have served us all well. And thank you so much for your service. And I also want to point out all the work you've done in the outdoor areas. And it's not just benefiting the district, it's benefiting the whole community. And you have a real gift for that. So thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
So should we get our picture? And look, we have this background. So that's fun. Should we meet over there? We're gonna do this again with Alicia, wherever she, this, in a little bit.
I have no idea if she does remember.
Did they want to speak now?
What's that? Maybe at the end?
It's okay, Kevin, go ahead.
All right.
I'm sorry.
So I will try not to speak as long as my years of service. But it's been an absolute honor and privilege to serve this community and the schools and especially our students and staff. It really has just been an honor to have the trust of the people and the trust of the organization over all these years. And I remember when I came on 17 years ago, sitting way in the back were my parents, who were lifelong educators themselves that came to watch the swearing in ceremony, which amazingly enough, I think at that time I got right. But I remember so fondly all those years ago. But my passion, as I think a few have said, is really, it is education. I didn't have that as my primary career, but I was able to really follow a passion in doing this work. And, my core belief is it's about all the kids, every single student that walks through our schoolhouse door. And every student has amazing gifts and special things that make them uniquely them. And it is so important to see that. And I think our school district does a great job of finding that and helping students kind of find their stride. I will continue my work in education with the Century College Foundation Board. And if the 916 Foundation Board will have me, I don't yet know. I would be honored to do that work. I do work with a community organization called Leadership Tomorrow, where we're working with future leaders. And we've had some great, actually part of our experiences at 916. And then I'm also working with a group of African-American artists from St. Paul called AHA, and I'm going to continue working with them to help share their lived experience through their art. I've been proud to work on a number of school levies. Proud to be around when we work successfully to pass the bond to build Wildwood and redo our schools. Proud to be a part of the Fab Lab coming on. Mahtomedi Schools was the first K-12 school district. They have a Fab Lab. We did take it from Century College, but nonetheless, we were the first. And now there are so many schools districts that have Fab Labs, but we were the first. I've really enjoyed getting to know the staff coming into the classrooms. I've really enjoyed times when I can talk to the students and hear their stories, and you see the passion in the teachers and the excitement in the students, and it's a learning experience whenever I go into the classroom and see what's going on. My hope for the Mahtomedi School Board in the future is a true coming together of community once again to support one of the best groups of educators in the state of Minnesota in our public schools in Mahtomedi. We as adults owe it to our students and staff to really be our best selves and come together and be united as Zephyrs. And finally, I just want to thank everyone here and anybody else. I just want to thank everyone for the privilege to have served. I'll be around. I'm not going anywhere. It's just going to look different. So thank you very much.
So my speech will be much shorter. But as I was thinking about what were my greatest passions in the school district, and clearly it did start out with all of the nature trail stuff, and then it turned into art adventure, and then it turned into MAIF, and then it turned into the levy, and then it turned into everything else. But it's always been about trying to ignite the passions in the students and to see the satisfaction of the kids getting what they want and getting what they need in our school district. So being such a small community, the school is clearly the centerpiece of our community. And it's a community that I care about deeply. And it has been a real honor to serve everyone. And I just want to thank the community for the privilege. So, thank you.
Now I'll move to.
So we have another recognition. And Carrie Gilland is going to come up and
All right. Good evening, everyone. Board members, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to honor one of our exceptional teachers at Mahtomedi High School. I'm here on behalf of Justin Hahn tonight, who is feeling a little under the weather, but would have loved to have been here too to share his thoughts. When Justin and I first started discussing areas where outstanding leadership shows up at the high school, it really quickly became obvious to us that Alicia's presence was in many of these places, both in and outside of the classroom. So tonight I would like to honor Alicia Wilma. And Dennis, if you could go to that next slide. Alicia is one of 4 art teachers at the high school. She's been teaching since 2003, and she's been in our district impacting students and families since 2013. Her primary passion and expertise are in photography, painting, and she teaches our advanced AP 2D design class, but I also understand and I know that she's taught, I think, almost all of the art courses that we have to offer as well. Alicia is really just a wonderful human being. It's hard for me to just put it into words, honestly. She genuinely cares about students. I see it in everything that she does. I see it in every day, just her day to day. What stands out to me about Alicia is she finds ways, kind of like Kevin was saying, for all of our students to access her classes. And she inspires students to find a passion for art in their own way, which I know I would have appreciated in high school, just not being the best artist in the world. Over and over again, I hear students talk about how they feel so successful in Miss Wilma's classes. When I listen to students talk about Miss Wilma, I can hear their joy. I can feel their joy and appreciation for her as a teacher. And many students go back over and over again and take multiple art classes just to have a chance for them to be in her class again. Alicia's very innovative and creative as well too. Last year, she saw an opportunity to combine our art and our fabulous engineering program. The goal was really to get more students and teachers into the Fab Lab in order to discover how those 2 content areas intersect and to show students those different career pathways, especially in art and engineering. She collaborated with our engineering teachers to get the STEAM team up and running. And this year, it really has grown quite a bit as well. They've been working on lots of different projects, many of which are focused on creating that positive culture we have at the high school. Justin and I have also appreciated Alicia's leadership on different district and school committees. Her perspective is really just very thoughtful and considers multiple perspectives. She's kind of the calm in the storm sometimes, I think of it. We really truly value her input and her ability just to see everything through that student first lens. I know that she's very well respected by her colleagues for her professionalism and her calm and humble nature. I brought a couple pictures of our STEAM team. What you see up here, Dennis, if you go to the next slide, these are kids in action. So our STEAM team meets during our flex time at the high school. As I've mentioned, it's grown quite a bit this year. Students involving, themselves in all sorts of projects and learning about how they can combine their love of art and engineering. Some of these students are art students first and in learning the engineering pathways, or they're engineering students who are learning more about the appreciation of art. So I just think it's a really unique and cool activity club that we have here at the high school. And Alicia has really spearheaded that opportunity for students. And if I could finish just with a few student artwork, I stepped into her classroom today just to see what students were working on. So you can see these are all student examples. I think they look professional. They could be on the cover of magazines and in museums. So students are really doing some cool stuff under Alicia's leadership and guidance too. And then last, just leaving you with some student feedback. So if you go to that next slide, Dennis, what I will say about all three of these students is they come from very different walks of life. They have very different purposes in being in art. So from Adalia, this is her first year she's had Miss Willman in class, and she knew right away that she was super nice and open, she said. Caleb is our president of Model Make It. So he's done quite a bit with the STEAM team. And he basically runs the show down there in the Fab Lab. He is saying just how much he appreciated how much she's able to help direct him with ideas and the team with ideas, and just is very super encouraging. And then our last student, Georgia Meads, this one kind of brings a little, I don't know, gives me the feels a little bit. She's never given up on Georgia. She said she's one of the teachers she feels the most comfortable around, and she lets you know that she's listening. She's a very real person. So, and I would agree with all of that feedback. So thank you very much to Alicia. I truly appreciate your leadership at the high school.
Okay, can't be safe. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's much, yeah, and Kevin just put in a little bit more. The hardest thing we do all night, right? Thank you.
We have our Northeast Metro 916.
Welcome.
Valbro.
And is there?
Oh, Valbravo.
There's a clicker.
Do you see that clicker up there
Yes.
for you? So that
Yes. Welcome. We're glad you can be here tonight.
Thank you very much. I am honored, and it's a great privilege to be able to be here and share a little bit of information about Intermediate District 916, our proud partnership with Mahtomedi. And let's see, okay, we got, there we go. All right, I am Valerie Bowe, Superintendent of Intermediate District 916, and I have with me tonight Jill Stewart-Keller, who is our Assistant Director at the 916 Career and Tech, and she has a special guest. I'll call them up in just a little bit after I've completed kind of my broad overview of Intermediate District 916 and what intermediates in the Metro do for their member districts. So there are 4 intermediate school districts in the Metro. We serve a collective 20,000 students across the Metro annually. 916 is one of those 4 districts. Intermediates are able to provide specialized services to their member districts at an economy of scale. We're able to leverage those economy of scale to provide specialized services and a great variety of those specialized services to our members. This is the map of our member districts. We have 13 member districts. Mahtomedi was one of the founding districts. There were 6 founding districts that started the intermediate back in 1969. So one of the main sources of use from our member districts, one of the things that we say as an intermediate district, that we are an extension of our member districts. And so we provide the services that our members request from us. And so special education services is one of those services that is greatly used from our member districts. We serve students ages 2 to 21 in our special education programs, primarily in our setting for our programs. We also contract services to our member districts. Our contracted services is really one of the great ways that our member districts are able to leverage economies of scale. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a few slides. But that has been a wonderful way to keep students in their home schools through contracted services. Also, through our care and treatment programs, we have a residential treatment program that we provide educational services and 2 day treatment programs. And we have 3 alternative learning centers. One is Mahtomedi Alternative Learning Center. We also have 916 unique services like Project Return, which is an alternative to suspension and expulsion, and our consultation team, which I'll talk a little bit about in a few slides. So this is what our contracted services looked like in our 2021 annual report, and it's hard to see, but we actually provided that year almost 95 full FTEs to our member districts. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a really cost-effective way to have highly trained specialists in our member districts. These are really low incidence providers, so blind, visually impaired, deaf, hard of hearing, physical health disabilities. So when your district or a member district needs a part of an FTE of specialized services or a specialist, you're able to contract for just the FTE that you need. And then that FTE might be shared by another member district. So you don't have to hire a full-time DHH teacher or a full-time PhD teacher. We will share that cost. You will share that cost with other member districts that might need that other 0.2 or 0.1 FTE. We also provide professional services to our member districts and across the Metro. Some of the ways that we are able to support our member districts is through specialized staff development. We have highly trained and specialized staff that really are experts in the field of trauma-informed practices and healing learning environments. We also have district collaborations like the Laserfish Collaborative, and I believe Mahtomedi just joined that collaborative. We also provide joint purchasing options to provide and or leverage lower cost services to our member districts. Maybe it's equipment for your cafeterias or other furniture in your buildings. Through joint purchasing, you're able to leverage some of those lower costs. We also have our training and technical assistance area. So our AT library, or assistive technology library, is something that many of our member districts like to try out new technology or new assistive technology, and they're able to use our lending library and try out those pieces of equipment before they actually purchase themselves. And again, our consultation team is really one of those wonderful opportunities to build capacity in your districts. And I get to share a little bit of a story of how Mahtomedi has successfully used our consultation team. And of course, we do lead networks, the metro area curriculum leaders. That is a statewide collaborative with curriculum leaders across the state. And we have a wonderful technology leadership program. We really have a fine data team, and we're really happy to share some of those services with our members. All right, this is annual report from 2021 school year. We served at Intermediate District 916 a little over 5,000 students. You can see across 20 programs there on the right, kind of a range of everything from our early childhood program. We have the auditory oral program, which is in Stillwater. And we also have, as I mentioned, the 4 care and treatment programs, our ALCs. We have 2 elementaries and 8 secondary programs. And you can see the outline of the map there in blue. That is the scope of our district. And then the orange dots with the stars is where our programs are located. You'll notice that the area learning centers have over 1,800 students that we served last year. So that is the highest enrollment in our district from our members. We also served 976 students in our career and tech center last year, or in the 2021 school year, I should say. And then special ed came in third. And then if you'll look down at the bottom, home districts, that is those contracted services. So those are services that we are providing through our contracted services or our itinerant services members in your districts. So a student that may need an FTE of a BVI teacher or a DH teacher or an interpreter, that service will be provided to you in your district. All right, last year, we started to look at trend data. We wanted to start looking at what we might need to know to predict the future, what our member districts might need, kind of a way to look at where have we been and what should we be prepared to do in the future. As I mentioned, we are an extension of our 13 member districts. We want to make sure that we are offering the programs and services that our member districts need. So we took a look at some trend data from 2011 on up. And this is what we found in the student service or the student facing service areas. So in our special education programs, we found that we are serving, there's about 95,000 students across our 13 member districts. And of those 95,000 students, the students that qualify for special education, we're serving about 3% of those students. And that is increasing by 3% on average each year. So that is a huge trend that we're watching and having conversations about. I also mentioned a couple of times the increase in contracted services. That's a really valuable service that we provide to our member districts. We've also realized that is seen an 83% increase since the 2011 school year. Our care and treatment programs, we provided over services, educational services to over 2,500 students. And you can see kind of an interesting curve there in the career and tech center. So we started out in looking at the 2010-2011 school year with 1189, kind of dipped down in that 2018-19 school year. And again, back on the rise here, the demand for CTE education is increasing. And we have a really interesting trend in our ALCs. There has been a double in our graduation rates from the 2018-19 school year. So we're really proud to say that we have doubled those graduation rates to 221 that graduated out of 716 students in the 21-22 school year. So here is a little snapshot of Mahtomedi. So as I mentioned, we serve, there's about 95,000 students in our member districts. And so we're looking at, this is the child count data as of December 1st of last year. So looking at Mahtomedi as a percentage of our member districts, you're 10% of the member districts. And so your percentage of usage, you can see there in the green squares. And the reason that we were looking at this data was because there was some interest in understanding how are member districts using 916? What is the trend in usage? And what we found was that everybody uses 916 a little bit differently. So as you can see, your usage, 10% of our member districts, you're using about 9% of special education, 21% in the career and tech area, 14% in itinerant services, and a little bit in our assessment center project return and consultation team. So the numbers below are the number of students in that school year that we're using those services. So this is a trend of usage over time. So if it starts back, I think in 2010 there, you can see special education is that trend line that's kind kind of that teal color. Career and tech is the orange, and the itinerant services is that blue. You can see the trends over the years of enrollment. And this is where I want to talk about the wonderful work and partnership that Mahtomedi did with our consultation team, and the trend of special education services on the decline. And that was because Mahtomedi partnered with the consultation team and built the capacity to serve students in your district. So we saw a trend then going down in referrals to our Setting For programs. So keeping those students in Mahtomedi and serving them in their home schools. So just a quick snapshot of our current enrollment at 916, and this is students enrolled as of November 30th, so 1906. This year, last year on the same date, it was 1879. So that increase, slight increases in our career and tech and our ALCs. Here's what that looks like by percent. So of greatest percent, of course, is the career and tech, and then followed by the ALCs and special education. And then looking at Mahtomedi. So currently you have enrolled 80 students. The majority of those are in our Career and Tech Center, followed by Mahtomedi Academy. And then you can see your FTE in itinerant services. You've got a 0.8 DHH teacher and FTE, one FTE of an interpreter. So if you look at that by percentage, the majority of the students are enrolled in career and tech, 76%, followed by 12% in special education and 10% of those students at the ALCs. At this time, I am really proud to introduce our Assistant Director of the Career and Tech, Jill Stewart-Keller, and she will introduce the student that she has with her.
Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I truly am the proud Assistant Director of Career and Technical Education and consider myself and our programs an extension of the amazing programs that Mahtomedi High School offers to students. And I look forward to introducing you to Rylan here in a moment to share. Part of my role as Assistant Director is not only to support the programs located at Century College at 916 Career and Tech, but to also think about career pathways and support career pathways in all of our member district high schools. So I get an opportunity to work with your staff closely to dream about what opportunities exist for students. And truly, we see ourselves as a satellite to the programs that are already offered at your schools. I actually made a joke about it earlier with Carrie. A traditional large high school has passing time of 10 minutes. It only takes 8 minutes to get from the high school to Century College. So really, we see ourselves as just another period in your student's day. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Northeast Metro 916 Career and Technical Center enrolls around 900 to 1,000 students, typically in grades 10 through transition ages. And that's 20 different programs. Our programs are typically 1 year long. However, we do accept enrollments at a semester basis as well, in programs where that entry is a smooth entry. As you can imagine, things like EMT, by October, they are speaking in tongues and their skills are way above anything that any of us are probably capable of at that point. But unlike PSEO, where students leave your school and your rosters, the 916 Career and Tech students from Mahtomedi High School stay on your roster as a full-time registered student. We're simply a satellite program. Your students can earn up to 14 actually college credits and a myriad of industry certifications. And that's our goal, is to support your schools in ensuring that all of your graduates are graduating with some sort of early college credit or industry certification. And then just in case you didn't know this, your school actually receives the Career and Technical Education levy funds back to your district based on enrollments in the programs located at 916 Career and Tech. So our licensed staff, 35% of their salaries and 35% of those consumables they use come back to the member districts. And in that, Northeast Metro 916 does not exist in the MDE system. In that way, we receive students based on your enrollment. Let's see. We love to preach about our competitive advantage, 20 different programs that capstone the programs you already have or complement, fit in those gaps. College credit and industry certifications. We'd love to have any of you, and I'll say any of you in the audience and in the community, out for a tour so you can see our amazing learning spaces. We're able to then facilitate fully licensed CTE teachers through the PELSB system. Our students actually also qualify for foundation scholarships in addition to those that your foundation grants to students that we share, in excess of over $23,000. And then, of course, they have these amazing experiences, and I'm not going to go too far into that because that's what Rattling gets to do. Our goal actually is that 100% of those students we serve will be able to state that they're confident about their plans after graduation. This I just like to share up there. This is actually a perfect example as it aligns with Ryland's experience. Our diesel truck and engine technology program career tree. We look at the career journey, not as a destination. So as we encourage students to think about their path, it's not arriving 5-10 years from now in their dream career. It's what am I going to do in the meantime to get to that stage, or maybe find something along the way that they never even thought of. So every single one of our classes has a huge poster, and we talk from day one about what kind of lifestyle do you want to lead and what kind of careers would you qualify for immediately after graduation. Those are our entry level careers. And then every one of the 20 pathways also then has a list of technical careers, the kind of careers that you would qualify for with additional education and experience, and the same thing with professional careers. And there's equal value in every single one of those careers. And in some cases, the professional careers don't pay more than the technical careers. They just require more education or experience. So that holistic look at what does the journey look like to finding your passion. This is my favorite part. I get an opportunity to highlight graduates from our member districts. So I'm looking forward to introducing you to your own class of 22 Ryland Store Camp. Ryan spent 2 years in our diesel truck and engine technology program, and he's incredibly, I'll just say, steeped in experience and has lots he can share. I'm attempting to, temper his presentation with the opportunity for questions. So he's going to tell you a little bit about his experience at 916 Career Tech, and then he'll be open for questions afterwards. So come on up.
Yeah, so as she said, I spent 2 years at the diesel program at 916, and I had never even heard about 916 until my counselor John Akins brought it up, and he kind of knew me before and knew what I was into and knew I was more of a hands-on kind of guy, and especially from like our engineering department, I took how to make almost anything, and that kind of sparked my interest in that stuff. And he said, I know you don't really like the book work, and I think you should really take this opportunity. So I signed up, and I actually didn't even know where to go the first couple days, and I showed up I think a week later when I finally got the information, and it's a little late, but I jumped right in, and I had, it's kind of funny, me and my dad joke, he's like, yeah, I bet you're happy I sent that email trying to figure out where you're supposed to go, and I'm like, yeah, it turned out all right. So yeah, everything that she mentioned, the state of the art, learning spaces. I mean, everything I worked on, or not everything, but I work on the same things that I do in my job that we had at 916. I mean, the experience that I learned from there, I use every day, and it gives me the advantage that Jill mentioned, the competitive advantage. Even on my resume, being able to mention that I've spent 2 years in high school, that's pretty much unheard of to an employer. They look for college experience, and I was hired pretty much right out of high school, which was the first time they had ever done that. And like I said, the advantage that I can get over anyone else that would have applied for the position, I probably wouldn't have gotten it, because everyone that would have applied would have already had college experience, and I would have pretty much been out of luck. But thanks to 916, I reeled it in, and now I'm set for a career for a while. So I like it, and it's pretty fun. And
Tell me a little bit about where you work.
yeah, so I work at Cummins on Berkeley Road, right off 694. So it's a pretty nice shop. I show up every day and learn something new, that's for sure. Every day I kind of come in and don't know what to expect, but I come out with something new at the end of the day, that's for sure. And I mean, the guys that I work with, I think the next youngest is 34, so that's a little bit of they said that on the interview. They said, yeah, everyone that works here is going to be a lot older than you. How do you feel about, can you think you can fit in? And I'm like, I'm not really sure, but I'm willing to give it a shot. And it's a great work environment. Everyone's willing to teach, and they're very excited to see a younger guy trying to get into it, and they're more than willing to teach. Just as my diesel teacher Doc, he deals with a lot of newbies and a lot of greens, but he's definitely willing to have patience and time for the stuff that many other people wouldn't. So
similar questions, one of which is why, tell us about, a little bit about Dr. Why is the right person to teach in the class.
Oh man, I don't think I could do what he does. It's- there's a lot of I there's a lot of mistakes that can be made in this industry and they can get expensive pretty fast. I mean, you do one wrong thing and you're out, a $40,000 engine. And it's like, that's why we have a lot of test engines and, everything must be done right. And if it's not, like I said, it can be pretty bad. And, his tenacity to get the right information to you the first time it's pretty important. And I don't know many teachers that, show up and have a smile on their face every day, but he does. And he's always willing to give me advice beyond the classroom. I do a lot of small engine work on the side and, I have questions for him. And even if it's not related to class, I know it's someone I can talk to and someone I can, share my experiences with. And I don't know, getting to know him, beyond the classroom and, as more than just a teacher was pretty cool. And, we stay in touch and I love to visit and, kind of look at all the stuff I messed around with and, we always asking questions about, oh, how'd that turn out? Oh, not too well. It's like, oh, okay. But
And how about the right side of the slide up there?
yeah, so I had never heard of Skills USA, similar to I had never heard of 916, but Doc said, I can really see you enjoying this competition and we pretty much train for it. And it's just a competition, on trades. They have electrician and, carpentry, just kind of to get blue collar jobs, kind of a competition for them, see who's the best of the best. And, I spent 2 years training for it and, I showed up day of not knowing what to expect. Pretty much everyone in my life was like, well, what is it? And I'm like, I don't really know, but I'm going to be there. So there's 13 stations, each, highlighting a different subject of whatever it might be, engine, transmission, driveline, electrical, and somehow managed to get first place in it. I had no idea. I was sitting there at the award ceremony and they called my name and I remember Doc stood up and he said, good job, Rylan. And as I stood up too, and that was pretty cool. That was an honor, really. It was. And it really brought a spotlight to your program. And I know that it got it in the books, that's for sure. And brought a lot of attention. And I'm very glad to be able to do that and bring some attention to the program because it's very valuable and can really set people up pretty good.
And went on to sixth in the nation, or fifth place in the nation.
Yeah.
Georgia.
Yep. So they did a national competition and yeah, I don't know, it was pretty fun. It was the same thing, just a little bigger, but it was yeah, I went to Atlanta for a week. Actually the week after I graduated, that's where we went and it was me and my mom went and stayed at the Westin Inn and
And when did you start your first day of coming?
the Monday after. I pulled in Sunday night after Atlanta and started work at 7 a.m. on Monday. So that was pretty fun. It's I don't know, it's kind of sums up my life. It's pretty quick and fast and you kind of jump into it and I don't know, it's been a great experience and I encourage people that have any sort of interest to sign up for 916. That's the great thing about 916 is you try it out, you don't like it, there's nothing held to it. You don't like it, go on and be an engineer and, do that. But I didn't think I wanted to be, a truck mechanic until I stepped foot in 916 and I was like, wow, this is fun, and if you love your job, it's not much of a job. So that's what I have to say.
I was going to, Rylan, I've had the privilege of hearing you speak before, and one
Yeah.
of the things you shared also was, in addition to having your job, they're offering some school or training.
Yeah,
if you
yep.
wanna talk
So
about
they actually through the apprenticeship program that I'm in, they cover my tuition and books and everything fully. And they partner with a community college in Salt Lake City, Utah. So they fly me out there 2 times a year for 2 weeks and get training at that it's let's see, what's it, SLCC, Salt Lake City Community College, and fly me out there, give me a hotel, rental car, and it's pay for it all. So it's pretty cool. And I've 18 or well 19 now actually. Just turned 19, so. Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and, not having to pay for school is a huge advantage, and, getting into a career and being able to work while learning that's pretty sweet. I just can't say enough about it, and I would never even known about it if it wasn't for 916, so that's definitely a great career.
Ivan, go ahead.
So Ryland, I had an opportunity to hear you speak as well,
Yeah.
just a little bit ago at a different meeting we were at, and I was just so inspired by your story, because it started with a conversation with your counselors. So thank you to the high school counselors for having the conversation with the students about that, to be able to find what are their passions. And talk to me a little bit about, because I remember you sharing something in your story about at 916, there's all these diagrams about all the career paths. Like you weren't sure, how did you end up as a diesel truck? I'm sorry, I don't know the total title.
Yeah,
Diesel-
yeah. I don't know, engine technician.
Yeah,
is
there you go. How did
official
you,
title,
how
but-
did you end up there? And I remember you talking something about all the different opportunities and the diagrams and things that when you were sitting in classes that showed you what were some potential areas to study.
Yeah, so for sure, right there, that tree that she has up on the board, that was hanging up. That's actually the exact one because that's got diesel trucks. That was hanging up in Doc's classroom, and that was probably the first thing I saw on day one. And I stared at that picture for 2 years, and it just being able to visualize the career paths is pretty interesting because I think a lot of people get into their field and they kind of figure out a way up, kind of maybe I could be this, maybe I could be that, but being able to see a list of what you can study and be into this position it's pretty cool to be able to visualize it. And I don't know, being able to see what's above what I'm looking into is it's able to set goals for yourself, and if you can set a goal then you can try and achieve it, and I think that's about it.
Paul?
Rylan, you're a very impressive young man. If, I think you have certainly a side job if you'd like, but
Yeah.
916 can employ you to promote their program for sure.
Yeah,
But in all seriousness, it's great to hear how you were turned on to the program. Can you folks maybe expand a little bit on beyond our counselors? What is it that our district and 916 is doing to promote these programs and to make kids aware of these opportunities?
more than I do about that.
The first thing that I will say, and it's a rarity, we are invited into the 8th grade, incoming 9th grade presentations by your administration and counseling. So the families and the students are getting the vision of what success in the future looks like and the dream for their junior and senior year. So I think that we have access to your students earlier than any other school that we work with, so they can start thinking about what does my future look like. I also would say the word of mouth amongst the students. What is this 916 thing? I think that's really powerful. We try to leverage the assets there, as well as within our community, everything from the Leadership Tomorrow activities, getting in front of your foundation, just trying to be in all of the places, as well. And then again, working with the counselors and administration at every school to potentially realize the goal of what every student graduating with an industry certification or early college credit of some sort, and it looks different for every student. So I think it really speaks volumes that there isn't a one size fits all idea of what success looks like. And we hear that from students often. I feel like I fit in here compared to maybe a highly academic setting. And so that part, I think, of giving students a place where they belong. And I also will say the pendulum swung. Back in the day when I started teaching, everyone was supposed to get the 4-year degree. And I think you'll see even with our way that our numbers have changed, that the audience of those that influence, even the educators themselves, are seeing the value. And right now, graduates are a hot commodity when it comes to satisfying the need and in our backyard, which is so incredibly important too. So does that help answer the question? And I'm just piggybacking on that one. You all received this past summer and will continue to receive in perpetuity an invitation to our student built home project. These types of things that Ryland's doing are over and over and over again, times 20 programs, phlebotomy certification. We've added a licensed trades program for next year. we're looking to try to find a way to meet the needs of all of our member district high schools, because not everybody can be everything to everyone, but together we can make it happen and have a purposeful experience for every single student. So we're really excited. Again, you're right in our backyard. So as far as partnerships, it couldn't be a better match.
So Jill, I think this one's for you. As we think about CTE and how it fits into graduation, because Ryland's been able to successfully graduate, which is fabulous, but how does that work when we think about the number of credits and areas? And I know you can double dip with some of those courses, but how does that work for a student who wants 2 years of experience at Century to come out with a certification to be able to do both at the same time?
Great question. Typically the communication around achieving the requirements towards graduation is really heavy in 9th and 10th grade in order to set students up for success for multiple opportunities. So the heavy elective 11th and 12th grade window is important. And that's where it opens up opportunities. But then students do, if they decide to start as early as 11th grade, need to let go of some of those I'll say stereotypical, you need 4 years of a math, English, science, social studies, a world language, and some sort of art or whatever it might be. So it's students like Ryland that know from 11th grade on that I'm all right with that, or they're willing to say, I'm willing to take this path, but if my dream takes me somewhere where I need those other things, I'm going to find a way to make those connections. But we're finding post-secondary institutions would love to see someone in engineering that has the auto tech background because they know how things work. So we're also seeing post-secondary institutions change the way that they look at things. But as school board, I will say that as schools and school boards look at what does that look like in a course guide, and as you're guiding families, especially first generation families, toward opportunities, how are those documents regarding how to successfully graduate reflecting creating pockets where students can fit in at least senior year a block? Because one thing that I didn't include in the presentation, students take their English and social studies, and by senior year, that's all that's really left as far as requirements. And they have a myriad of electives left in that space. So they spend part of their day at Mahtomedi High School, and then they get on transportation, which I also give incredible credit to your district for providing. So no student is not getting access to the opportunities and that competitive advantage at Career and Tech. Thank you.
Well, I've had the privilege of being on the 916 board for the last 4 years, and one of my, it's been wonderful learning. And every time I am involved and hear a new story, I'm like, oh my God, this is my latest and greatest news story to tell the world. It's compelling. I mean, what you've done is incredible. And I used to do small engine repair when I was in school. I always had a problem with the feeler gauge, trying to get the gaps between the timing something or that, yeah. And my instructor said, "Oh, Donovan, you got to redo this." But anyway, it's just really, really impressive. And your story, as beautiful it is, it's not. There are other wonderful stories that we hear time and time again. And I would urge the board, if you haven't been over to do a tour, the new board that's coming on, citizens, the 960 to 20 programs they do are amazing. I went through and went to a dental assist program, and by the time I was done with that presentation, I think that teacher was trying to recruit me to do that. But I didn't do that. No, she was great. I mean, it was, and 916 just really has some wonderful instructors, and the facilities there are amazing. The welding program for 916 is right across the way from the Century College. So state-of-the-art equipment that's happening there. It is really, I urge you to, if you haven't, go take a tour. When we did leadership, it was the highest rated tour we did at any of the places. So thank you, Jill. Thank you, Val. Thank you.
For the opportunity. This year, we have 65 Mahtomedi High School students enrolled in our programs.
I also had the opportunity to tour most of your programs, probably with Kevin a few times too. And I just happened to be there the day the guy that wrote the book about all the career trees, you invited all of us there, and I could not stop talking about it. So I'm really glad it resonated because I couldn't stop talking about it after I had been there. And it was really great presentation. And so I just encourage you to keep inviting the board there to and our advisors to keep them informed. So our students know what you have to offer. And I'm really glad to hear that you found a passion, and who knows where it'll take you, but it's really great to see you so happy in what you're doing.
Well, and I'll just, oh, Lucy, did you?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I haven't gotten, yeah, that's right. I just want to say thank you so much to 916. I too remember the tree from, I guess, like 8 years ago, and it still will come to mind in certain instances of how that resonates, because it's just such a good visual of that career path. Rylan, congratulations to you on your competitions and on where you've landed for your career. Very impressed with your presentation tonight, and so proud that you're a Mahtomedi grad, and just really hope that what we're doing is exactly the story that you're living out. Is that what we're supporting here is so that every student can follow what's best for them and their passions and what they want in their life. And that looks different for everyone. And I love that we can partner with 916 so that we can help students find that avenue for what's best for them. Lucy.
So Val, I had a question for you about some of the data earlier in the presentation, if everyone's on the CTE part, if we can go back to that. So I was noticing in the credit recovery, there's a trend towards an uptick in number of students using that.
Yes.
Is the data showing, or do you have a hypothesis about that data? Is it COVID related and you expect it to drop down again in terms of need, or is this just going to be sort of the new normal that kids are going to need other opportunities for credit recovery?
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's a great question. We've been studying it and kind of trying to put together some theories of why. We have a couple of theories that are brewing. So one is, of course, related to COVID. We have also seen an increase in our ALCs, and not only in the ALC just enrollment, but in attendance. So many of our ALCs, you can enroll for part of the day and or be there for part of the day. The students that are enrolling are coming for the full day. So there's a couple of things happening there. I believe that the engaging work that our instructors are doing to support students find their passion, connect with them on that sense of feeling that they belong there, that they're connected to something that gives them hope for a future, really helps them to build their dreams. And so that's been increasing not only the enrollment over the last couple of years, but also attendance. And so the credit recovery, I think there's a number of factors there as well, but right now we don't have all the answers around the data, but that is something our Director of Ed Services is really working to kind of figure out. And a lot of it is, a lot of the work that we're doing in terms of research around that is through using some tools, developing some tools with the University of Minnesota to collect that data in a qualitative way, along with quantitative data, to determine, gather information from not only parents, but students as well, to find out really what are the trends and how can we better predict for the future what we need to do to support those students in both credit recovery and at our ALCs, because we have seen that increasing trend. And we want to be able to make sure we're ready to serve.
Thank you. I appreciate your perspective and how you're addressing it in terms of research-based with multiple data sources. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay, next on the agenda. Oh, the letters presentation. Jen. Lindsay and Judy.
I think we're going to pause for some pictures. We can go. Oh, okay. We're going to go. Thank you for having us here tonight. I am going to do a super brief introduction, then I'm going to turn it over to the two experts behind me, and then I will come up and share the podium for any questions that you all might have. As you all know, there is a program that's called Letters, Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, and we happen to have two trainers in our district that I have heard from Vicky Weinberg at the Department of Education are among the top trainers in the state of Minnesota. And so on that note, I'm going to turn it over to them. Thanks, guys.
Hello, I am Lindsay Sandman. I am here in the district with a literacy specialty, and my colleague is Judy Livingston, who is a reading specialist at Wildwood Elementary School. So when I think about letters and explaining letters, which again is language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, one of the big pieces that I always try to emphasize is that letters is not a curriculum resource. It's not a package that of things you do as students. It's knowledge. It is knowledge about how our brains become literate brains. It is knowledge that once you have it, you always have it and you can always use it in your classroom. It is knowledge that helps us select and implement really high quality curriculum resources. It's knowledge that helps teachers select the appropriate instructional strategy for the student that's sitting in front of them. It's knowledge that helps us assess and diagnose what we see going on with students when maybe they're having a hard time picking up those reading skills that are so crucial for academic success. It's helpful to think about it in terms of a course you would take at a college or university. It's for teachers, it's for adults who are learning about how our brains learn to read. So the letters program is broken into 2 volumes, essentially. Volume 1 is heavily focused on word recognition, being able to get words off the page when you read. And volume 2 is focused on language comprehension, because once we are able to read words, we need to understand language to make sense of the words that we've just read.
And so when teachers are going through the letters program, volume 1 is what we are working on right now at Wildwood and OH Anderson special ed team that is joining us. They basically spend about 80 hours of staff development over the course of the year. That includes textbook readings, watching an online platform of videos and quizzes, and then also meeting with Lindsay and I to debrief what they are learning. And we're really trying hard to make sure that we make the best use of this time with them and being able to talk about how it actually fits into our situations and with our students. So like I said, nearly all of the Wildwood staff is participating, and also OH Anderson special ed teachers are participating in the full letters training. Our Wildwood specialists, which would include the music, art, behavior, STEM, OT, and I hope I'm not missing anybody, but maybe a couple others, are doing a shorter version of the training. And they're going to be getting into a lot more of the vocabulary and the language comprehension, because that is where their wheelhouse takes them. We've also had some earlier cohorts that we've worked with, including elementary teachers, secondary teachers, and also some administration. This one. So why do we need to have letters? And like Lindsay was mentioning already, letters really just gives us a deep understanding of how our brains process language and how we are able to get those words off the page. And when we say that, we're talking about like decoding and then also understanding what we read. When I first started learning about this, and my journey in letters started maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, it immediately changed the way that I approached my interventions with students, and I immediately also saw results that were happening, and the students were more confident. And so what we notice is that many of the teachers that have been in this profession for maybe 5 or more years, the teacher prep programs haven't kept up with or aren't teaching us what we need to learn to read. From what I understand from many of our newer teachers, that they are starting to get those programs into their schools. So hopefully we'll be seeing that trend go up. And the Minnesota Department of Education partners with Lindsay and I as well, and they have championed letters as a gold standard for PD.
We've had a lot of district support over the last few years to bring this initiative to our district. Judy and I we did the training as students of letters in the 2018-2019 school year. And I think within an hour of the training, we both realized that this is amazing. And we applied for a MAFE grant, and we were recipients for a grant to be able to become facilitators so we could bring it back to our district. So it was really great that we got that partnership right off the bat from MAFE. Jen Reichel and Scott Brisky at Wildwood and Susie Prather have worked to support letters this year. They've allocated all of our staff development time to letters. Our staff meetings and our committee meetings have been cut down to the absolute bare bones so that teachers could have the time to do this work. And we've also had support as far as funding goes from the district as well, as far as purchasing access to the online platform and the textbook and materials that teachers need as well to participate in the training. This is one of the key foundational models that teachers encounter when they begin their letters training. And it's one of my favorite to talk about because it really, I think, highlights the complexity of reading. You'll notice at the bottom of the rope, the blue strands are heavily focused on word recognition. In order to be able to decode words, to get words off the page, we need to be able to hear sounds in words, and we need to be able to attach those sounds to graphemes or letters that represent those sounds. And eventually our brains store away words that we recognize in an instant. Eventually words become words that we can't not read. That's only half of this reading rope. The other half requires us to understand language. So once we can read words, we need to know things about the world so that we can connect what we're reading. We need to have a broad knowledge of vocabulary in order to comprehend. We need to understand language structures. We need to recognize that written language is more complex than the oral language that we tend to speak. We need to be able to recognize the coherence between sentences to make sense of what we're reading. We need to be able to recognize metaphors when we read them and make inferences. And different content areas have slightly different ways of organizing their text. So we actually need to be able to work our way through those texts. So I think when we look at literacy instruction through this analogy of a rope, I think it just does a really great job of highlighting how incredibly complex reading is and how amazing it is that honestly we can read.
So a lot of our passion behind this is so that we can be supporting students that have dyslexia or even just characteristics of dyslexia. So dyslexia is a language-based learning disorder that can cause people to struggle with reading, spelling, writing, and pronouncing. And as Lindsay just talked about, letters or learning to read is all about language. And one of my favorite ahas from the letters training is there are 26 letters in our alphabet. There are 44 sounds in our language, and there are over 250 ways to spell all those sounds. If we can't teach that explicitly and systematically to students, there are going to be many students that are lost. It's said that 20% of the population is affected by dyslexia, from the mild to the severe. And we need to make sure that we are making sure that we can connect the sounds to the letters, and then add all of that other complex language comprehension that Lindsay talked about. Letters helps us understand the why and the how to do this. We still need good resources, but we can make adjustments to those resources to meet the needs of all the students that are in front of us. Systematic and explicit teaching is crucial for the students who need it, and it will not hurt anyone. We have spent about 4 half days, so 2 full days with our staff this year doing our debriefs with them so far, and we have a few more to come. And we've heard many positive responses about the training. This one that we have up on the screen is from a first grade teacher who has 28 years of experience in the teaching profession. And it does highlight the fact that it's frustrating that we didn't learn this earlier in our career.
So as Judy said, we're working through about 80 hours of learning altogether this year, which is massive. And it's kind of just the beginning. I think of letters as kind of a cornerstone of the work that we're going to be doing to improve our literacy outcomes. So teachers at Wildwood OH will complete Letters Volume 1 this year. And the next step is going to be a really thoughtful, systematic implementation of enhancements to our literacy instruction. As I said, Volume 1 focuses heavily on that word level reading. So we're going to be looking at explicit and systematic phonics and phonemic awareness instruction, with the outcome, of course, being that students become fluent, accurate readers, which is crucial to ultimately be able to understand what you read and to work with text. Smart use of data is going to be really important for that. We're going to be needing to gather data on a regular basis. We're going to need to be analyzing it to look for successes, and also to recognize where we need to make additional adjustments so that we can work through a process of continually improving.
This is one of the quotes that comes from our letters training, and it is one that has resonated with Lindsay and I throughout all of our work with this program. And I truly do believe that informed teachers are our best assurance against reading failure, and that programs don't teach, teachers do. We have the knowledge.
I wanted to ask you what questions you had.
Paul?
Thank you for pioneering this in our district. Could you maybe provide an example of how you would have taught me to read and how you are now, how this program would change that approach? Do you have a simple example of how?
In the past, we have used a lot of leveled readers where we would ask you to read a predictable text where it would say, I like to grocery shop. I like to climb trees. And there's no systematic phonics to that. If we haven't taught you that the grocery has a sh in it, but no sh, you would have a really hard time picking that up without looking at the pictures. We want to make sure that students have their eyes on the words at all times and are learning how to decode every word. And we have really learned a lot about how, instead of, it's not a print to speech, we don't memorize a bunch of words. We learn the speech and then we match it to print. And so, like, I would, again, in grocery, do you hear the sh sound in grocery? Do you hear it in the word sure? And so our phonemic awareness of being able to hear sounds and really honing in on that and making sure that we're training that from kindergarten on, so that kids can break up words and be able to blend them and segment them so that we can read and write. And I mean, I could go on and on with all kinds of things that I've done differently, but I hope that that helps just a little bit.
Yeah, that helps. And I'm excited to see the impact, the positive impact that this is going to make in the future. So thank you.
Kelly?
Thank you so much. This is amazing. And I guess my question is, so it sounds like you're working through volume 1 right now. Can you talk through next steps? Like, what's the plan past that? And this is right now for Wildwood Elementary, and then you said special education at OHA. Is the next phase then OHA, or where do we go next?
Saw those eyeballs go, okay, Jen, that's yours. To be quite honest, we're not quite sure. We needed to figure out, is this a viable path for professional development? Because to ask 80 hours of investment is a lot. And I think Scott Brisky has done an amazing job partnering with these two to figure out what can we do in our system to make it so that we have the capacity to do 80 hours of professional learning in a given year. I think some of the things that I've been talking to Lindsay about has been, who needs the full volume 1 and volume 2? Is there a way to truncate volume 1 and shift to volume 2 with enough foundation for our folks at OH to really feel the level of meaning that our Wildwood folks are feeling as they explore that volume 1? We also know that we have people beyond OH who are interested in learning more. And so I think we've had some conversations about, how might we offer some summer cohorts for people who just want to learn more? We did that last year, and we're eager to kind of expand that. But I think each step that we take, one of the things that I appreciate about what Lindsay and Judy are doing is they're really being mindful of making sure that folks who are investing in this see the direct connection to their day-to-day work, so that we're not making this something that feels compliant and where we get pushback, but really kind of growing the excitement, and people are drinking the Kool-Aid and then they're like, I'm all in, and I need to tell everyone else how much better I can do at meeting the needs of the learners in front of me because of what I've done or what I've learned. And we're hoping that our Wildwood colleagues are going to be sharing with the world, wow, this is transformative and you need to learn it too. So we're taking baby steps, but we have to see how this plays out this year.
So I want to thank all three of you for your leadership in this area. As a district, we're further ahead than most districts in the state because we had started our letters training well before the legislature allocated money for other districts to do it. And so we're thinking about this 2 steps ahead of everyone else. And I appreciate that. And Lindsay and Judy, I know you're very involved at the state level, even helping and supporting and thinking about licensure renewal and some other pieces that make a difference to all teachers in the state, not only our teachers. So I like the way you think about kids as a whole, not just the 20, 30, 40, how many of you have, Judy, in front of you each day, right? But you're thinking about that. My question though really has to do with our assessments, because when we look at the assessment data available to the public, because I just came out of a meeting with a bunch of people from the Hunt Institute and others, all we have available publicly as we look across the state is MCA data. MCA data doesn't help us here. MCA data is not growth data. And we know in districts across the state, no one's using the same thing. Some people are doing too many things. Some people are over testing. Some people aren't testing enough. So as we think about that growth data on individual students, are we doing it often enough? Are we using the right tools? Are we collecting the right data? Do we have what we need? You sort of alluded to that in one of your slides, and I got really excited, and then you moved on to something else. Can we go back to that, please? Yeah, number 3.
Yeah, number 3. Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at growth data, at Wildwood Elementary, we use FastBridge assessments 3 times annually as a measure of benchmarking. And when you think of foundational literacy skills, we get some really good information from that. So in kindergarten, kids are identifying onset sounds. That tells us, can they isolate the initial sound in a word? Are they on that path to understanding that words are made up of sounds? They take letter fluency assessments. They do word segmenting assessments. So can they, over the course of the year, break apart a whole word? And then they do some decoding assessments with nonsense words, they're called. They're words that are not real words, but they are phonetically possible in English. It tells us if kids know their sounds and can blend it together. First grade does something very similar. We look at their decoding skills and their oral reading fluency and their word segmenting. These are all crucial foundational skills to show us whether or not kids are where they're supposed to be. So we have it, the FastBridge assessments at that level do, I feel, provide us with some really good information, and it does show growth from fall to winter to spring. We do add in some additional diagnostic assessments for students. We'll do things like decoding inventories that'll give us a better idea of what skills kids have acquired in their phonics. We have some phonemic awareness inventories that tells us how kids can do that. So I do feel like we actually have some good foundational level assessments. It does get trickier as kids get older. When you think about that reading rope again and all those components that go into language, it's actually incredibly difficult to assess reading comprehension because of those many pieces that actually go into becoming a skilled reader who comprehends. Does that answer your question?
It does partially, but I'm going to follow up for Jen after she does her part.
There are just two things that I would add to that. I've talked to you all about those three kind of buckets of data that we've explored before, that satellite data, the map level data, and the street level data. And so I think what you're talking about is that the map level data that isn't what we can see across the state with our satellite data, but really gives us a clue as to for which kids do we need to dig deeper in order to figure out solutions. The thing that I'm excited to share, part two, is that very recently, Lindsay and Christina, and you've heard me talk about Christina and the data guru wizard that she is, we've been dreaming up a plan for how we can gather data on our students from grades 2 through 8 that will also help us to uncover some of the difficulties that our families might be seeing in their children who just are struggling with some of those reading pieces. We know that some of that satellite data and map level data that we currently have helps us indicate who has some difficulties with reading. But there are some children where that map level data isn't enough. And so we need to look at what might be a different assessment that might help uncover some of those pieces. And in the new year, we're going to add a very short assessment to our suite of tools at OHA so that we can uncover some of that word work piece. And then we're exploring some ideas for more at the secondary level.
So as we think about all the assessments you just talked about, right? And you think our students are here in our buildings to learn, and we have a state statute that says we can't test more than a certain amount on these standardized tests. And I know how long FastBridge is. I know that assessment, but to reassure parents and other board members, can you talk a little about how long it takes to give a FastBridge compared to an MCA or some other standardized test?
Yeah, so the tool that I was just telling you for that we are adding at OH is a 10-minute, less than 10-minute assessment that will give us actionable data. You're right, Lucy, we don't want to have students sit at a test because that's taking time away from the work that we need to do in order to help them continue to grow. So we are intentional to use FastBridge at our early elementary because they are so short. We don't use that same tool as kids move into middle school because what we found is that kids kind of top out. And so the actionableness of that data as kids move into middle school isn't quite as reliable for the general population, which is why we moved to map testing at middle school rather than continue with FastBridge.
When you say that as you're moving into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, how, for those students, they weren't originally taught to read by teachers who were trained on letters, the current third and fourth, fifth. So does it transition okay? Has that been a smooth transition?
Tell me more.
So if the teachers at OHA are just now getting trained on.
So it's just the special ed teachers at OHA
Okay,
who are partnering or, connecting with our Wildwood teachers to participate in the learning.
but those students would not have originally started with someone who had letters training. So are they able to transition to this?
Great question. So I want to revisit on one of the first slides that Lindsay talked about, is that letters isn't a program for kids. It's the learning for the teachers. And so the resources that we have, by and large, are good. There are some that we need to revisit to make sure that they're aligning to the science of reading. But our teachers now have this new lens that they can say, oh, I did this. Now I can tweak it and better meet the needs of my kids. I don't want anyone to think that we were wildly inept at literacy instruction. This just provides some more focus and a better understanding of what we do and why it works.
And sorry, just one follow-up. I think Kevin has a question too. Is it also helping us? Do we have data that's already showing that we are addressing the needs of our dyslexia students better?
So I would bring you back to an earlier presentation I did where I talked about the rock star nature of our intervention teachers, who are, when they are with people like Judy, we are seeing them grow. Some of our families who have kids who have a diagnosis of dyslexia or who have characteristics of dyslexia haven't necessarily had the data that meet our criteria for intervention. They are being successful in their classes. They are meeting proficiency on their MCAs. It's just really hard for them to do that. So as we reimagine some of our intervention work for this upcoming year, we're trying to balance that need for those kids who are truly, we're seeing across the board with their data, they need help with reading. And then for those kids who they're getting good grades and they're passing their MCAs, but we know that there's something in there that makes it really hard. We're trying to find a sliver of a way where we can allocate some of our intervention time for those children. We're doing a better job at Wildwood right now, and we're catching up as we move along. And that's what continuous improvement is like, is we're figuring out, oh, we could do better. Now, how do we address that?
Thank you for your presentation. It's wonderful to see what's going on. Judy, I remember, I don't know how many years ago it's been now, but you came and did a presentation on dyslexia. And I had that light switch moment of saying, oh, that's me. And really has been, I owe a lot to you for giving me that insight and understanding. And I've worked down at the legislature to try to get some additional funding, trying to maybe get when teachers do relicensing to add some of this into that work. But I guess what I heard a little bit tonight was that it's certainly good for kids that have a learning difference, dyslexia, and doesn't really hurt the other ones. But I've read some things where this method for teachers helps all students. Is that right? Okay. And so it would occur to me when I'm listening to this, that how can we afford not to do this? And knowing that, doing this for a long time, knowing that dollars for education you have to work at it. But we do have $17.6 billion in the coffers right now. And might this be the time when we could move forward to our state legislators and say, look, we need some additional funding. We believe that this could bring the biggest yield for our students. If we're looking at seeing our students really improve, reading is the core foundation of all the other academic pursuits. So it would seem to me that this would be money well spent. So that's just a kind of a comment from all those years you got me excited about this work. And again, I thank you for that. The other part that we've heard in the conversations, community conversations that we've had this fall, and I don't know if it was just, it's random, you know, who we got paired with, but it seemed to me that I got a good number of people that I sat with identified students identified as having learning difference, dyslexia, and parents that have students that way. And so as much as I think what we've got going is awesome, you know, Wildwood and, you know, but I'm concerned, still thinking about the middle school students, the high school students, that, you know, when the kids are learning how to read, but then they're reading how to learn. I mean, that part, is there anything that we can do, or maybe some conversations are happening that would allow for us to reach up to the upper grades and say, you didn't have letters, and maybe we need to do a few things different from some of the work that we currently now are doing in the lower grades. I mean, again, I'm not knowledgeable on this. It's just that this is what I've heard from community. So thank you for your work.
I'm just going to jump in and add a little context. Because I have Lindsay as part of my team now, we've been able to do even more than we have in the past. So I'm really thankful to have her. And we have begun some conversations around dyslexia and are pulling in a group of families to help us, give us some feedback and help us help guide us in our next steps. We have taken some steps to do assessments of some children. They are likely not on track to qualify for special education services just because of the model of what needs to happen. But we are finding ways to support those kids during our school day. And we know that there are more. And so we're eager to continue to add to that and build our capacity to meet the needs of kids. I think top of mind, well, like equally, we know that we need to build an even more solid foundation with our early literacy. And we also have to address some of the gaps that our kids who are currently in middle school and high school may have experienced in our system. And we're working on it. I mean, we're engaging right now in how can we make some changes to make a direct impact this year for kids.
That's great. Thank you.
So I was thinking the same thing you just said, Kevin, and thinking about like the support for our middle school and our high school kiddos and really helping support reading at all grade levels. And so the expansion or what's the next step, I'm really excited to be able to meet the needs of all of our kids. And when I think about the slide that was up there from Mrs. Bruner's comment, who taught my kids how to read, and I'm just so thankful for that because I taught secondary. So I just expected them to come into my class knowing how to read, and she has that skill set, and understanding how the brain works is really what I'm getting from you out of this, is how the brain works and how to process that information and what to do with it. And so if someone who taught my kids how to read is super passionate and excited about it, I want to put that into the hands of as many teachers as we can get in Mahtomedi schools to be able to reach all kids. I don't know how anyone could argue against that. That seems like great time, resources, because, I just wonder who we're missing if we're only focusing on our littles.
That's all the questions. Thank you so much. We are very proud of the fact that you are a member of our Mahtomedi team. We hear great things about you, not just in the district, but outside of the district as well. So thank you so much. I know that Kevin and I have had many conversations for many years, and it's just, it's so rewarding to see this coming to fruition. So thanks again for all your work.
Thank you.
So now we get our report from Kaya.
So a little bit of a lighter week this week, but I want to highlight some things that the band has been up to recently, because last Monday they just had a jazz concert, which is always exciting, and I heard that it went very well. It's very fun for the jazz band. And then another big thing was that the MHS band and choir got to go to OHA last week, which I can still remember from when I was in elementary school, having the high schoolers come visit. So I think it's really impactful for the elementary kids to get that opportunity. And I think that the high schoolers really enjoy it too, getting to see how excited kids get about what they're interested in. So that was a fun opportunity. And then our student council has been working on fundraising for Christmas gifts, like I mentioned at the last meeting. So we just had our P&L Parents Night Out. So we raised a good chunk of money, and next week we're looking to buy the gifts and distribute them to the school we partner with that gives gifts to students who can't afford them, that are usually younger elementary age kids. And then last, I just wanted to follow up on one of the updates I gave at the last meeting about our adapted soccer team going to state, because they did get third. So that was very exciting. But yeah, that's everything.
Great, thank you. Great. Now Barb.
I do have presentation, and do you mind clicking through it for me?
Fine. And actually, as you pull it up, I'll just say, I'm going to share. Just as an overview, I'll be sharing again, some things that are happening around the district. Highlight what's happened with our dessert and dialogue in November. Give you a slight legislative update. Just talk about our surveys, our strategic planning update that's coming, and then some just upcoming community engagement events. To the next slide, please. So Kaya already talked a little bit about what happened at the high school. We've had a number of activities going on in every building. We have some community impact across our schools this month. Wildwood gives back. They are doing a collection for St. Andrew's Resource Center. O.H. Anderson is doing a winter clothing and toy collection. The middle school has a Cash for Kids fund drive, and I know they've met their goal of raising over $6,000 for families in need. And then Kaya just talked about our Mahtomedi High School SLC and National Honor Society held a Parents Night Out recently. So for dessert and dialogue, this is something new we tried this year, and this was our second round, November 28th and 29th, having a community engagement sessions. We again came together and just had roundtable conversations, and our topic this time was belonging. We did make some changes to the way we ran these based on feedback from our first session. And once again, the feedback from the event is shared with our school board members and our district leadership team. So thank you to all who came out and joined us for those. Legislative update, as you've heard from Kevin already, that current projected surplus is 17.6 billion. And one little tidbit that we have in here. Well, first of all, I want to just remind you of the AMSD legislative preview. And I do have some information about the platform, the legislative platform from AMSD, and I can hand that to you. That's happening on Friday, January 6th. And from 7:30 to 10, I will be inviting all of our elected officials, newly elected, and those who are returning to come and join us. And I'm hoping some will show up. And here's a little tidbit that our Director of Communications pulled together for you and put on this slide. Newly elected members who have never previously served in Minnesota legislature. It's 28.4%. So that's a really big difference from years past. So something to know, and a great opportunity for us to help our newly elected representatives to learn more about our schools. So we will be inviting them in to tour and to learn more about what we do here at Mahtomedi Public Schools. Want to just highlight that we do have a few surveys out. Families recently received an email to complete a school level survey regarding family conferences. We do want to hear about get some feedback about our conferences and the format. And so we're hoping families will fill that out and give us some feedback so we can improve. Also, this week, we sent out a survey about our Alumni and Friends program, asking participants to share information service about the information services and opportunities they'd like to receive. This is a new program that we've launched, really trying to connect with our alumni. And we're doing some of this in partnership with MAIF as well. So those two surveys are out right now. They've just been sent out. Strategic planning update. We are looking at an update for our strategic plan. So the first phase will be the planning team. And this will be a small group of about 25 to 30 people during January. And the group will update, just look at the mission statement, objectives and strategies. And then, this planning team is assigned and it's representative of the school community. The action teams are the next step, and those will start likely in March. In February, we'll start sending out information about the action teams, and those are, anyone in the community can sign up for those based on their interest and what they see the strategies to be. So last time we did this, we had about 100 people participate in our strategic planning process, and so we hope to see that kind of participation again. Upcoming community engagement opportunities. Mahtomedi Middle School STEM Fair is coming up, and that's organized by the high school STEM club and for middle school students. And so that's coming up in January. And then just as a reminder, we have these on here, upcoming roundtable conversations from elementary on February 2nd, more coffee and conversations like we did this evening. We had our first coffee and conversation this evening, but we have another one coming up in February 23rd. And just as always, we have our Zephyr Learning Showcases again. So those are just some upcoming engagement opportunities. And so that's what I have for my report.
Thanks. Great, thank you, Barb. Okay, next is discussion information items. So board member calendar. Were there any comments? I didn't have anything to call out. Did you have, Lucy?
I'm going to call out the MSBA conference again. Our staff have 2 presentations, and this is a state level conference that allows us to showcase the great work that we're doing here. It's a peer reviewed, well, it's not peer reviewed, but there is a review process that happens. Not everyone is accepted, but we have 2 really good sessions coming forward at that conference. So I hope you're all able to attend. I think both of them are on Friday morning. It's a 2-day conference, but both of ours are that Friday morning. Is that right, Barb? I believe
Yes, they're both on Friday.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Good call out. All right, anything else? All right, we will move to action items. First, can I get a motion for approval of donations and grants totaling $16,593.29? Moved by Kelly. Seconded by Julie. All donations and grants are greatly appreciated. The use of these funds will be to further the mission of the school district and are used towards the wishes of the donor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Now we'll move to approval of the Mahtomedi Middle School schedule redesign.
Pull this up and actually, as we pull this up, I am going to go back a little bit. We've had some questions about the middle school schedule recently. And I want to go back kind of to the beginning and just do a little recap of the history and how we got to where we are. And so for that, and this little part, you don't have to go anywhere because this little part is not on the slide. So I'm going back a little ways. So as we've talked about, when we did our last strategic planning process, it came up again and again that the middle school schedule and the high school schedule both did not have the flexibility needed to really address the needs of students in the ways we had been talking about, whether it's allowing students to have exploratory opportunities, really being able to be responsive to students. And I'm just, for the purpose of this, I'll just talk about the middle school. Really being able to be responsive to students in the moment, being able for teachers to really see what students needed and be able to offer that support right away. our schedule was in the way of a lot of that. Our teachers remembered the days when there was a 7-period day, and team planning was involved in that, where teachers could get together and talk about what our students need, what are we seeing across classes, how can we support that student, can we pull that student in, have a conversation. So there are some things that we were able to do when we had a 7-period day, and then during budget reductions we went to a 6-period day. So it came up again and again of the things that teachers used to be able to do to really react to students in the moment. So that came up during our strategic planning process. Then in March of 2020, and we recall what happened right after March of 2020, we will not speak of it. In March of 2020, we started with an initial guiding change document here at the school board, with the school board. And a guiding change document talks about what's our current reality, what do we want, what's our desired result, and what are the parameters we have that we're going to follow. And so we worked through that in March of 2020. But we came back to it in September of 2021 because things had changed a little. And so we came back and restarted in September 2021. At that point, you had also you had also gone through a training about a process that we could have community participation throughout the process as we kind of built this schedule. And we were working on both the high school and the middle school schedules at the time. We've since decided to just go forward with the middle school schedule, because the high school, we got kind of caught up in a number of layers of what was going on with the high school schedule. So again, for the middle school schedule, I'll just start with that. It was a different process than we had used before. In the past, we have done things where there was something created and then came out and said, here's what we've created, react. This time what we did, and we got some feedback as we were going, that it was a little disconcerting for people, because we'd come with a draft and we'd ask for feedback, and then we'd go back and we'd do it again. We'd come back with another draft and we'd go back and do it again. So we did do 3 of these focus groups, and we did families, we did staff, we did students 3 times in February, March, and April of 2022. And it changed dramatically. The first round, we had a number of block schedules, actually, if I recall, the first time around. And let me back up a little bit more. When I say we, this was a group of teachers and administrators at the building level, the ones who knew how the schedule worked and what needed to happen for kids. So those of us at the district level really were facilitating and helping the conversation, but it was the practitioners who were designing this. And they were designing it with family feedback, student feedback, and additional peer feedback as they went. 3 different times. We came to you and we shared that with you as we went. So in the spring, in the end, the 7-period day just came up. We heard from families, we want to make sure that our students are having that consistent courses every day. The every other day was, it was a little disconcerting, I guess. We also had heard that the block was just felt too long for middle school students. So those were things that we had heard in the first round. So we landed on a 7-period day about the second round. And then again in the third, we just had different variations of it. And with this process, I just want to also remind you, I might be on a slide now, actually. Do you want to, I'm sorry, we'll just skip. I'm doing a terrible job. Do you want to go to the next one? I just got going. Okay, this is the slide that kind of really talks through the timeline. So, which I already have started talking through, so you can just join me in the middle there. But by the time we got to in the spring, we had been talking again and again. It was a 7-period day, a variation of the 7-period day, and a couple different times you heard about that. What needed to happen then is our staff really needed to work through, our teachers and our administrators at the building level really need to work through. Now, what does this really look like in order to make it work? But they needed to talk about what they knew about middle school kids and what they knew about their experiences as educators, and look at the contract and really work that through. And so that we had thought, I will say, that we were going to come back to you in maybe August or September, but we also had a new principal. And so there was work to be, so for this to be developed, we wanted our staff who are the experts in all of this to really be able to have that time. So that is why when we came to, that's why I know we got some feedbacks from families that it felt fast. And I understand that. And we've talked a little bit about how we can communicate better in the future. I do want you to know that this was the process that you had laid out that we followed. And we really did take a lot of time and a lot of feedback in getting to this point. So with that, would you mind going to the next slide for me? And I am going to, oh, if I may, another thing that's not on this slide, but do keep this slide up because I have a little bit more information. So you can see behind me some of the things that we got in terms of feedback. I want to just remind you also from your guiding change document, some of the things that and I think you're going to see that it came out also kind of in a different format from families and teachers. But when we started this, from your guiding change document, we talked about students having opportunities to explore career pathways, schedules that allow flexible opportunities for students to access a variety of classes and experiences in each academic year, that students can set goals, they can make plans, they can achieve those goals, and that systems exist to support students to continually discover, explore, and connect with their strengths. That opportunities are not limited to a classroom setting. That this was a foundation, that middle school was a foundation for preparing for independence and learning study habits and life skills. That students explore and find passions. That students have more opportunities all students have opportunities in the allied arts. Ability to be flexible with student groupings and time for intervention. These are all the things that we talked about at the beginning on the outset of this process. And so you'll see behind me a number of the things that came back in terms of feedback. I'm sorry, someday we're going to have monitors out there that I can look at, but in the meantime, so I think you see from staff, families, and students, you see a number of those things, but you also have that desire for academic rigor. We also have new state art requirements that require us to expand our art offerings. We also talk a lot about teacher collaboration during the school day. And I need to highlight that because this is really an important part that I don't know that everyone understands, but as a longtime middle school educator, this is pretty important. So when students are in Wildwood, they have one classroom teacher who has the opportunity to be really flexible with their needs of their students because they have control over their day. The students are with them for almost the entire time, and they can respond to student needs and change how it is they work their day. As they grow through OH, they'll have two teachers in 4th and 5th grade where teachers can collaborate and make plans for that small group of students, and they can react and make changes and make plans together during that day. And now they go to the middle school, and the way our schedule works right now, they go to the middle school and there's not that time for teachers to collaborate on a regular basis to be able to make those plans for kids. So students go through a very inflexible schedule where teachers don't have those opportunities to really make those plans for students in the same way. They do it because they're professionals who want to support kids, but it's different than offering a schedule and a system that supports teachers in being able to do that work, which is what we're talking about with this schedule also. So a portion of this schedule is an investment in making time for teachers to be able to have those conversations and to be able to do that work. So that's an important part of this. And that time is opposite what we've been referring to as middle school success. That's another area where we've heard some feedback on just wondering a little bit more about what that looks like. And I'm certain I'm not following my script. Okay. So I'll try and follow my script now. So this is the current middle school schedule with 52-minute classes, a 6-period day. Zephyr time is 22 minutes. If I had music, They're 4 quarters of exploratory, and academic support is currently combined with Zephyr time. And so students receiving intervention are pulled during exploratory classes. So what we're looking for is for the new schedule to incorporate the state art requirements. New schedule needs to support students who receive intervention or counseling to access both exploratory and intervention time. New schedule allows for teacher collaboration to meet contractual minutes, and incorporating support for students, middle school skills, academic exploration, and wellness. So that's what we were going after with this. We do have a slide here of what stays the same and what changes. So we're going from 6 to 7 periods is what we've been talking about. Class periods do get shorter as a result, 52 minutes down to 45. We'll have additional arts classes. And then this middle school success time is added. I'm going to talk a little, I'm going to expand on what we have there. Students are going to be able to participate both in exploratory classes and intervention. They're going to have movement opportunity during lunch and Zephyr time each day for character development. And again, teacher teams will have some time to plan. So with this schedule, the Zephyr time is shorter than it is right now. And the idea with the design team was to separate out that social emotional learning time and academic support time. Right now they're combined into one Zephyr time. So to be purposeful about the way the time is used. The middle school success time, I liken it to a win time, but I'm told not to use that term because it's elementary and we're moving on to middle school. So, but it is a structured time to focus on academic skills such as organization, time management, study skills. These are important skills for middle school students to learn. And I know there's some fear that we were going after something similar to the high school. High school at during flex time, students have a lot of freedom and flexibility and agency to drive what it is they're after. Students at that age can be agents of their learning in a different way than middle school students can. Middle school students still need a lot of structure, but we're growing their independence. We want to grow independence over that time, but that's not the same thing as being completely hands-off. So I think that's an important thing to know about middle school kids. So within this middle school success, there's going to be opportunity for students to receive intervention. And I'll just add that this expands the opportunities for students. So students who qualify right now in our schedule, students will qualify for an intervention. They'll be pulled and they'll have a separate class for that. This allows, there may be time that students need an intervention for a short period of time, or it may be that they just need additional support for a certain topic. And this allows for that more flexible opportunities. It allows opportunities for teachers. This will be opportunities for teachers to check in with students, offer academic guidance, meet with club advisors like web or student council. That could happen, but again, that's a little more structured. And I think I have other notes here, but I'll just stop there just so that you can ask questions. So so we're with this again, I'll just say this process has been a long process. It's been an inclusive process. And I'll just acknowledge again that there are families that felt like it was a surprise and they hadn't known this process was going on, or they hadn't heard that we were continuing to progress. But it has been a lot of work. I really value the work of the middle school staff because it did require a lot of, there was a lot of compromising and figuring out ways to make this work, because the other component of this is we needed to do this in a fiscally sustainable way. We didn't want to do something that we would just do now while times were good that would fall off in the future. This was something that we were investing. We're investing in the middle school and middle school programming. But I'll just say, I think, and again, I know my middle school bias, my heart is in the middle school. I just know that there are things that we can do better to really support our middle school learners. And so this is being brought forward as a recommendation for approval. But I'm also ready for questions because I know a few of you have received some questions and things that you want to be able to talk a little bit more about. I'm going to just stop there. There may be more slides, but I can flip to those.
Well, I'll just jump in real quick. When we talk about intervention being at the same time as exploratory, can you just highlight that a little better? Because I think that's something that that's one of the things we have to make right. And I don't know that everyone's aware that
Yeah.
that's how it works right now.
So students who need, say, extra reading is my easiest example. There are others, but extra reading time, instead of being able to participate in a they might be pulled out of one of their quarter classes like art, Spanish, health, Fab Lab, in order to get that reading support. And so they're not able to have those quarter class experiences, music. I'm not, it just depends on the student and the intervention they need. And so for some students, that's something Fab Lab may bring them, that hands-on experience brings them to school, and they're not able to participate in that in the system we have right now.
Just to follow up on that, just to be clear, it's not that they get pulled out, it's that they literally can't sign up for those exploratory classes in some instances.
In some instances,
And
they are
that's-
taking, an extra reading course for the,
And that's something we really wanted to fix. And then also just in terms of exploratory classes, can you just expand a little bit on how it's right now, it's really limiting as to the choices a student can take. So I know an 8th grader, if they're in band and Spanish, then they can't take Fab Lab. And this would open a door where they could actually have an opportunity to try all three if it's somebody who they want to try something else.
right, there will be more opportunity. I'll say that the task for this group was to create the schedule to open opportunities. Now there's curriculum process that we have that in the district, and so that Jen runs, and so that this group was not in charge of creating a curriculum. This group was in charge of creating a schedule that had flexibility to allow for those courses. Like I think of the arts program is in review right now, and they will be working on developing. That's my easy example. Working on developing courses. Now, I'll also say that this will be our first year with a new schedule, and I anticipate as teachers, like what we're seeing at the high school, as teachers have more opportunities to dream up a new course. I think there'll be some additional courses that could be offered in the future as well, based on student interests and things. But to start with, one of our main focuses is on the arts. Mhm.
Kelly?
I might have a couple questions on this, but my first one is, well, I guess the first thing is a comment, and that is, we have really I was a middle school teacher for a long time as well. And we've been operating in Mahtomedi, running what's called a middle school under a very much a junior high format. And with this middle school type of schedule that's being used a lot of different places in Minnesota and around the country, what I have seen is the opportunity for a 7-period day, like you said, opens up more opportunity for kids. And so what I appreciate and like about this is the ability to think differently about what opportunities this could present for students, because as a parent, if any of you have had middle school kids go through the registration process, you get the registration paperwork and basically it's decided for you. There's really not a lot of opportunity. Like you said, you get to choose whether you're going to do a band or a choir, or it's pretty limited. So I like the opportunity. I think some of the questions and concerns are about not knowing what that middle school success time is and versus effort time, and how to quantify what is what and what's the other. And so if a student isn't someone who is needed to be pulled for intervention or things like that, what does that look like for all kids? Again, I know we're leaving that up to Jen and her curriculum team and what that could potentially look like. I think we're looking at what this schedule could bridge or build for possibilities for kids. But am I thinking correctly, Barb, when I'm thinking like as a teacher, if I taught social studies, could this bring some cross collaboration if I was teaching, does this structure, I guess, because again, we're not going to get into the weeds of the curriculum, but could this structure provide some cross-curricular opportunities if I'm teaching something like a World Wars or something like that, and I'm doing the social studies piece and the language arts piece is the writing piece, and it allows us for that collaboration time that previously didn't exist because the literacy teacher is teaching one thing, I'm teaching social studies, and we really didn't have a chance to even figure out where the connections were. Is that kind of one of the goals behind this for the increased teacher collaboration?
Yeah, I think you're right that that was something that in the past that was able to happen. And so one of the things I think about is I'm looking out at a couple of our experienced teachers in the audience that remembers the day, they can remember when we had these opportunities for students, and the things that could be done. And yes, so that's something that was done more in middle schools when middle schools were funded to be middle schools. Mhm.
If I could just piggyback on that, it reminded me of something that one of those teachers said while we were in conversations before the meeting, that really all of this goes toward ensuring that the student is getting what they need to succeed academically. And I think we've heard a number of questions about academic rigor and how that will be affected. And the teacher was very articulate in explaining how that is something that is a lens that is being looked through to that end. That's the purpose, is so that we do ensure that academic rigor and all of these things go towards supporting that child so that they can succeed in the path that is best for them. Kevin.
I hate to keep using back in the day, but I will. When we had the 7-period day and went to the 6, that was the community was upset, to say the least, and the staff, and it was really one of the most contentious things. And so now we're looking at that was a good thing. We were doing it to be fiscally prudent. We had to, again, back to the never enough money for education. But I think that changing something is hard for some people, just to say there's a change and I don't fully get it. I don't fully grasp it. And so I think that the team has done amazing work over several years, using lots of different lenses to look at what's best for kids. I think what I heard tonight when 916 came and talked to us, talking about how the folks at 916 that are offering some of these courses that we can't, they're bringing the message down to the middle school. In other words, trying to say this is a time when you have a chance to try a lot of different things to figure out, things, you change from middle school, but sometimes you don't. Like we're here tonight. I mean, I think he knew that he was going to be a hands-on learner for his career. And I think that, if we can do that and provide these opportunities to explore in the middle school, I think we'll be doing a better job for all of our students. So I endorse this. I do. I think it's good work been done, and I think it'll be best for students.
So Kevin, I'm going to piggyback on that because one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is I was not on the board when that change was made from 7 to 6. I have heard about it and reactions from teachers who are most qualified people when it comes to thinking about the school day for our students. And that decision was made budgetarily. The decision we're looking at tonight is made in the best interest of students. And those are two very different ways of thinking about the work that we do. Sometimes we are pushed into a corner budgetarily where we don't have a choice, right? But now we have this great opportunity to do something that's right for kids. And so I really appreciate the way that you spoke to that, Kevin. That's very helpful to me. I really appreciate also the parents who took the time to email us to share their thoughts, because I think it helped us clarify some things and present some things in a clearer fashion to everyone. But what's interesting about that is that, I got the emails from some of the parents who were concerned about a 7-minute change in class periods. I'm thinking, oh, they're concerned about 7 minutes. I better check the research because that's what I do at work, right? So I went into the research on class time. And what I found is that class time at the middle school is anywhere from 40 to 90 minutes. There's no standard, there's no good research document that says, oh, 46.5 minutes is the best thing for students. There's nothing like that, because what matters when you think about instructional time is not the amount of time we have, but how we spend it. And so I like the way this is broken down into these two phases of let's figure out the schedule. Now let's hand it to the teachers and the curriculum team to figure out how we spend those precious minutes with these students to make the difference that we need to in terms of moving them forward in their learning and with that rigor. Finally, the last thing I want to say is that I was recently talking to a bunch of high school calculus teachers because that's who I hang out with sometimes. But as we were talking about success of students in classrooms, and we were looking at some research out of Canada, the thing that determines success of high school students later after middle school and thinking about talking to teachers and saying, well, what are the qualities? What do you teach? What needs to be there? And the things they come up with consistently are perseverance, risk-taking, and flexibility. So I think about that Zephyr time, and I think about other qualities like that, note-taking, those executive functioning skills. Nobody owns those. And when nobody owns a piece of the curriculum, it's easily forgotten. So we are being very deliberate in our thinking and planning to make sure somebody owns these important skills that will make a difference in the future of their learning to be successful. So I really appreciate the time that's taken to get here and the fact that we are leaning heavily, very heavily upon the experts, our classroom teachers, to find what's best for our students.
Julie.
Well, I would like to echo what Lucy and Kevin have both said and frame my comments with the lens of this statement that I'm about to make, that it's not uncommon for parents to compare or be afraid of change, to be feeling like they're missing out on something when something changes. I remember being extremely upset that our school was in financial difficulties and my kids didn't get the 7-period day or the block schedule at the high school because of all the choices they had. Architecture classes. I mean, it was all different kinds of cooking classes. The choices they were impressive. Yet my kids did just fine because we kept refining and making the budgetary changes work. The teachers adapted their classes and kids got their needs met. But it has, ever since I have been on the board for 8.5 years, we've had at least 6 years of budget cuts, and the board has tried to work hard to get back so we could get back to this collaborative schedule at the middle school so kids could get their needs met, exactly what you're talking about. And this is not a quick thing. We've been talking about it for a long time, and it's a commitment we've all had to this. So I say that to express my deepest support and thanks to all of the teachers and administrators who have put in countless hours of their time to make this happen. It's not a loss. Again, I'm jealous. I'm jealous now because this is a positive thing for our students. It's a move forward.
Go ahead, Paul. I've already spoken once.
Madam Chair, couple questions for Barb and whomever else might be able to speak to these. A couple keywords that I heard in there that are important, and I think important to the community to underscore that the additional time that's being created is structured, correct? It's structured, it's programmed. Is it a fair statement to say that that structure is going to adapt to the needs that our teachers identify for our students as different classes and different students come through those doors.
Yes, I think, when we talk about and again, I think people are, because it hasn't been completely defined yet and it's new, it's logical to think, is that just a study hall? Or is that, and to think about all the freedom, again, that the high school, that's our reference point, is the freedom of the high school flex time. And we're not talking about that kind of level, although the students may think they need it or that they are ready for it, that we're not talking about that. I'll just say, I don't think there's a middle school teacher out there that wants 45 minutes of unstructured time with students. I mean, I think that's fair, right? So that's not the intent at all.
Number two, thank you for the examples of the success time. Could you give some examples of Zephyr time, perhaps, that we can grasp?
Zephyr time will be about 14 minutes. I'm looking to my experts in the room, about 14 minutes, 12. It's shorter than what it is now. And the idea is more of an advisory so the middle school is working through a new social emotional learning curriculum called Character Strong. And so they're working on creating that as part of that time, but it's also an opportunity for kind of a check-in with students, with an advisor to be able to check in with their students also.
Thank you. I appreciate Lucy's address talking about, and Stacy touched on as well, about where we are, this comes, there's an expense, there's a trade-off, an expense is in terms of we're reducing 7 minutes in certain classes. I heard tonight, or prior to the meeting, I was really encouraged to hear, like Stacy alluded to, a couple of the teachers who took time tonight to come and visit with community members that talked about that it's incumbent upon us as teachers to make sure that we are making the most of the time that we are with those kids in that class. I also heard that it's hard for kids at this age level for that attention span to last as long as it is expected to last. And so I came away feeling even more comfortable hearing, from the folks that are going to be in the classroom and having to implement this, of the challenge at hand and taking ownership of it. It's incumbent upon us to make the most of that time. And that was really encouraging to hear.
Well, Paul, I want to piggyback on that too, because we've actually made the teacher's job a little bit harder. Sorry about that. But we have not changed, neither has the state, the academic standards that we expect these teachers to complete. And now they have less time, right? And so they're going to be much more focused in their work, but it makes their job almost more difficult at times with a shorter amount of time. But they're up for the challenge. They're asking for the challenge because they know they can do it.
And then, speaking of time, is it fair to say that the amount of, as the term contact time, the amount of contact time that teachers have with students is going to be at least the same and possibly greater in certain cases for this to implement this new model?
Yeah, so on certain days it will be because of our teachers will have that middle school success time. So that makes their contact time longer on those days and a little bit shorter on the other days because they have a duty, though they're planning. So so I think it's comparable contact time, student contact time. Mhm.
Then my last question, and so anytime a new system is implemented, there needs to be evaluation and constant review of how it's progressing. Can you speak to how you envision that going forward as to evaluating the new process going forward and how that might look from your perspective?
I'm sure we can expand more on this with some thought
others, but I will say that when we look at our guiding change document, we made some statements about what we wanted. Do we have students who need intervention that are able to access exploratory courses, for example? Are we able to meet the needs of students, more of that real-time support for students? Are we able to create better plans for students who need, again, we've talked, I think, at this table about, we have opportunities for our advanced learners. We have opportunities for our students who, in terms of supports for our students who struggle. How about the students in the middle who have difficulties some days, but not every day, those who need supports at different times. And so this is an opportunity for us to do that. So I'd suggest, how many students are we able to really respond to and make plans for? One of our teachers who's here right now, who remembers the days of the 7-period day, talked about how they would be able to pull in students and meet as a team with that student and make a plan for them. And that's an opportunity as well. So I think I would look to what we set out to do, and how is that, how many more students are we serving, and how much better are we able to respond to student needs. Mhm.
And if I may, one more, and this is more of a comment, but we've had, our family's had this personal experience, and I've heard it for all the years that we've been here, that, and I'm sure it's not the same for everyone, but at least this has been our experience, that, in Mahtomedi schools, the high flyers will continue to be high flyers, and they don't need a lot of support necessarily. The kids who are struggling and really struggling, they get that support. The kids that are in the middle, unless they have engaged parents and teachers, they are at risk of falling through the cracks. And when I've reviewed this model and talked to people, it's my understanding that this model is one way of addressing that concern. What are your thoughts on that?
I really think, because it allows for flexibility for teachers to be able to respond in right away to student needs. That's what I think we need. That's one of the things I think we need for our students, is just that, again. So how else would I say this? Students who, the students in the middle that you're talking about, are students who, especially at middle school, if anyone knows a middle school student, you would know that there are days when they are thinking really abstract thoughts that you think, wow, that's the child I've raised. And then other moments where they're just kind of a mess, right? And you think, this is the child I've raised, so I mean, I think that's fair to say about a middle school student. And so, and it's appropriate and it's normal development. So don't worry if I just described your child. That's what you expect. So what this does is this allows that immediate response for student needs, and that's a normal thing that is needed for students at this age. Mhm.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the middle school schedule as proposed.
Second.
Moved by Lucy, seconded by Kevin. Any other discussion? I think we're good. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Madam Chair, I'd like to call for a recess. We've been sitting for 2.5 hours. This is our bathroom break.
Do I just go into it, or do we?
Mhm. You don't need to vote.
Okay,
You're the chair.
We're in recess
long?
for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, my watch says it's bedtime.
All right, we are back in order. I'm calling us back to order at 9:42. Thank you. Okay. And now we have approval of the advertisement for bid for the roof replacement. Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're just requesting that the board approve our solicitation of roof bids. I think the timeline you got in your packet, we're doing this now. We want to have bids back in January. And what we hear from contractors is get this done now if you want to have any hope of having this work done in the summertime. So you guys know this is this replacement is because of a storm we had last summer, last spring. I just want to comment on so we've had single ply roofs in the district, 15-year warranty. What we probably will we're going to bid those and the insurance company will pay for those. But we're probably going to come back with the multi-ply 30-year roof. That's what most districts are putting in place. So we've done that the last few years, or we've done some smaller replacements. Those are the only areas that weren't impacted by this storm when we had that built up multiply. So, but what we have learned last couple days, that $8.5 million might be more like 10. But that's the part that what's important to us is what that differential is between what the insurance company will reimburse and then the cost of the multiply. So we think that is still there, we're being told, but that we'll see when the bids come in, might be closer to 10, but our cost, if the board wants to go with the multiply, and that's going to be our recommendation. That differential should be about the same. So again, that's just motion to approve the authorization for bids.
So I just want to be clear for our public that all we're doing tonight is going out for bids, and you've structured the bidding process to allow us to make the best decision once we have those numbers, because insurance will cover a certain part of it, and we're
Right,
hoping to
yeah.
have the funds to improve our roofs. But we won't make that decision till later, till we see the final numbers.
yeah.
And tonight is only about the bidding
Yeah,
process.
this is action to approve administration to solicit bids. And then
So-
we have to bring those back, and you will have to approve bids when they're received.
Kevin.
So the insurance is to cover the 15-year.
They're
Remember,
gonna cover what we had in.
So if it's an $8 million thing or a $10 million thing, they are going to cover us for that, whatever that amount is.
Right.
Okay. For the
Yep,
15-year.
yep, they'll replace what we had, but what we're gonna want to do is have the multiply built up routes.
I make a motion to approve the bid
Second,
wording as Jeff put forward.
Yes, so Julie moves for approval of advertisement for bid for the school facilities roof replacement, and Lucy seconded. Any other discussion?
One question for Jeff. So can you just touch on the timing? So when will bids come back? When does finance plan need to be identified? Do you have a feel yet for that?
The time, did you get the timeline in your packet?
Timeline.
That's,
But I don't know if you had, Paul, but your questions on the, on securing funds. Yeah, that'll follow short. We're not gonna do that till we have the bids and we know which way we're going to go. And I would say, we're talking about, probably what you're asking is, every year. So Kevin and Julie, you guys see in their LTFM plan, $500,000-$600,000 of roof needs each year. So what we're going to want to do is probably go out and bond for that addition using LTFM funds. But if we do a 5-year bond, 10-year, we will never have this will be 30-year roofs. So I doubt that I'll be here the next time you're talking roof bid, but better not be. So anyway, that'll follow right after we get once we get the bids in here. I think it's January 12th. It's going to be a couple of weeks before the board meeting. We'll start doing some of that work.
so what I'd hope when you come back to talk more about the funding is, so there's, what is it, a 10-year plan that MDE requires us to show when we're leveraging these dollars, right? So I guess my concern is not, my concern or question is, we've got an inventory now of future facility needs. And if you could then perhaps at some point in the future illustrate for us what the long-term capital plan is on how we're going to potentially fund all these, including these roofs, because the LTFM dollars, you can only leverage those so far, right? And so
Right.
the board at some point may have to start prioritizing future needs given the funding that is not unlimited.
Yeah, you know, and that's what we did with working with Site Logic. So we have this plan. But I think you know that it might be $87 million of needs we've identified, and we get 1.3 every year of LTFM. So what this helps is that it's going to take the roofs out of the game. So that certainly helps. We can move some things up. But yeah, we'll have to look at other funding if we truly want to tackle everything.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, Jeff, truth and taxation
Yeah,
presentation.
so Stacy had said this was pretty short, right? And this presentation usually only a couple hours, so I can go through it pretty quick. So what we're asking you to do tonight is approve the final levy. And if you recall, back in September, you did the preliminary levy. We do that based on authorized maximums. And so when we submit that to the Department of Ed, it's just preliminary maximum. What you do tonight is do a specific dollar amount. And so the levy that we presented in September, there's been a few technical changes, but probably in the hundreds of dollars. So pretty close, the numbers, final numbers, pretty close to what you did back in September. So hopefully you do that tonight. We submit by the December 28th, we submit the final levy to the county auditor and the Department of Education. And I think we've gone through this more than a few times, but the levies are voter approved, and in this district, that's operating referendum, capital projects, and then there's the discretionary levies, kind of all based on a dollar amount set by the legislature, typically a dollar amount per student. What it looks like for school property tax levy for pay 23. So I should add or mention that these are levy dollars for the 23-24 fiscal year. So pay 22 levies currently funding. If I go back to that. So general fund on 10.3, that's where most of these tax dollars come in there. Big ticket items there, the operating referendum, local optional, capital projects is in the general fund. So again, 66% of the total levy of that 15.8 finds its way to the general fund. And I just put down there, the bottom I was scribbling doesn't make sense, but this total levy is 1.23% less than prior year. Some of that has to do with some enrollment changes and adjustments to prior levies. So I say this, the truth in taxation requirements have just, so counties, cities, we have to talk about our budget. So that works pretty well for cities and counties, because when they're doing their pay 23 budget, that's for doing their levy, that's for their budget that's going to be in effect January 1. School districts, we talk about last year's budget, so that's really pay 22, but we have to present budget information, so here it is. So so this is the budget that you approved in June, current year budget, but the levy we're talking about is going to be next year. But I did update this with ending fund balance numbers. So so the projected revenue, projected expense, same thing that you approved in June. But that beginning fund balance now reflects our audited fund balance. As you can see, 12%, I think on the bottom there. Unassigned balance as a percent total expense, 12%. We stay above that or above our 8% policy number. It ends up at 11.8 for at the end of this year. Across the board, now there was a pretty big increase in valuation in the district, about 24%, I think across the board average. So this, looking at these proposed amount, actual amounts for 22, proposed for pay 23, most cases, if your home experienced that 24% increase, and obviously around the district, there's probably 10s, there might be 40s. But this just assumes that average. So you can see the impact from pay 22 to the new levy for next year. So decreases pretty much across the board. So what we're asking you to do is approve again, you did maximum levy in September. Now we need you to approve that total specific dollar amount that you can see at the bottom there. The 15.8. So questions? Didn't take me an hour.
Okay, any questions for Jeff? Julie?
We see these numbers over and over almost every month. There's no surprises. And I move approval.
Point of order, we can't do approval till we do the public comment.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Just trying to move it along, Lucy.
I know you are, but it's up to the chair to make sure we do the public comment. So I will make sure that I can send there.
Okay, do we have public comment? Okay, got a thumbs up. Okay, any other
Great job.
discussion?
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Julie,
Second.
seconded by Kevin. For approval to certify pay levy 2022, 2023. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, now approval of policies, and these are the ones due to the MSBA substantive policy changes. Barb.
Yes, and so this is our final, we've done 2 readings. This is our final one, and moving to approval. And we haven't had any updates or any conversation since then or additional questions. The one thing I do want to mention is that under policy 515 in the cover sheet, Leslie highlighted something when she was cutting and pasting MSBA red line into the template for our policy. She had missed just a sentence that she has now put into the cover sheet so that you see what that was. It is out of statute, and so it doesn't change the conversation, but she wanted to make sure that you knew there was a sentence that she had not cut and pasted into the document that you saw last time. So that's highlighted, but that's the only change that's happened since then. And again, that was on policy 515. So.
So Barb, we have a policy on policies that says we do this at least twice. So the public can make comment at board meetings, and we haven't had any comment at the podium. Have you received any feedback from the community on any of these policies at all that we should be aware of? Thank you.
Motion for approval
So moved.
by Paul. Second, I'll second it. Seconded by me. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, school board committee reports, 30 seconds. Just kidding. All right, we'll start with AMSD.
So Barbara and I went to the last AMSD meeting. Knowledge Works came and presented on their new transition for tomorrow document that deserves a little bit more attention than we can give it this evening. And so it is available on the AMSD website. They gave a nice presentation that's available to watch as well, but I'm hoping Barb will give us an opportunity, a study session or something to dive into that document more as it looks at forward thinking kinds of things that we need to be aware of and that we've been involved with. Barb was called out during the AMSD meeting by the staff nationally for her good work in the area of instructional hour. And so I'm hoping we'll have that opportunity to look at that more later.
So one thing that we talked about, and so I'm just gonna go off script a little bit, but in talking a little bit with Stacy about your work with LEAF also. We thought there might just be an opportunity for like a study session on that work and this work, just because it all ties together and doing just a little bit deeper dive. So it's not just this document. So surprise, I'm telling you what the theory is.
I'm going to ask you before we were in a meeting, but now you brought it up.
Yeah,
So
so you might as
you're on
well.
the
So
hook.
that was the idea about not just handing this out, but actually having an opportunity for you to share those, both with the work you've done with Knowledge Works around this and with LEAP. So it'll be great. Thanks for doing that in the future.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. The other part of the meeting was on the legislative platform. Do you want to talk about that, Barb, since you printed it for us all, or do you want me to take that or?
I did just hand it out again. You've heard us talk a few times now about the I'm sorry, my words aren't the same at this time of night, but on January, the legislative the preview that's coming up on the 6th. So that is, and this is the platform here. You could go ahead and highlight.
I think it's important on January 6th, as many of us who can attend. Thanks to Allison, the data she shared with us earlier this evening, we have a lot of new people coming into the legislature and we have a lot of money and it's a budget year. And if we want that money to be allocated towards schools and students and learning, making our voices heard at that meeting and other times is going to be very important. So it is January 6th. This is a platform from AMSD. MSBA also has a platform that they have. We have a platform that will continue to work with it as well. But I just think it's really important. This is an important year for schools in terms of potentially making a very big difference in finances and things that we're able to move forward.
And I'll just highlight, looking at the strengthen and stabilize funding, you'll see some of the things you've seen before, but I think some others you'll notice that we're again talking about fully funding special education and English learner, that cross subsidy.
Is it hybrid or is it in person?
Hybrid.
Hybrid. Too bad, because the in-person really is the best.
Oh, it's hybrid that you can go in person and you can watch online.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying it really is better if you go and meet the people.
Right. I'm going in person. I've been nominated to be on the executive and legislative teams for AMSD with a retirement of a board member being elected to the Senate. Mary Frances Clarity has been elected to the Senate, and so her seat is open. So they've asked me to step up. And so I'll be voted at that meeting as well on that executive and legislative committee. Another thing that I should have told you before, but you know, as part of that conversation, surprise. Right. So.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. And now, Maeve, Kelly.
Just a quick update from Maeve. There was, sorry, I'm losing track of my notes at this point in the night. Oh, so we got to, part of the mission moment presentation, we got to see Ryland Storkamp, who was here earlier this evening, talk about his career and technical education experience at 916 and talk about attending the skills competition in Atlanta as well. And just such a great story. So that was a presentation at the last MAIF meeting. Also, a couple of things just to note. There was some discussion about the Rise and Shine with MAIF event and how that's such a great opportunity to showcase some of the great things that are happening in our schools. And MAIF is considering whether or not is there a different time, a better way, place, whatever that might look like to maybe increase that audience, because if it's during the workday, does that make it difficult for people to attend? So that was some of the conversation at MAIF. And I feel like I have one more thing. Oh, I know what it is. Yeah, Wildwood Artist Series. So the Wildwood Artist Series, there are 2 events left for that for the school year at this point. Peter Mayer, who I believe did a residency. I couldn't come up with that word right now. Yeah, residency at OH Anderson will be on February 25th. And there will be the a cappella showcase on Saturday, April 1st. And there was also a presentation about the Wildwood Artist Series and how to expand that and its offerings and what that looks like in the future. So those were my main points from November 21st.
I have a question. So, did you get unanimous support on the fall fund drive from the school board? Because the board has a long-standing tradition of unanimously supporting the mission of MAIF, as MAIF's mission supports the school district's mission. And Paul, maybe you could speak as a former board member, the importance of having unanimous support from the school board on your fundraising efforts. As I was on the board as long as you were, and that was always a very strongly desired trait, is to have the whole school board donate to all of the fund drives.
Yeah. When I was there and when you were there, that was a very important point that MAIF wanted to have that support from the school board. Yep.
So I'll just say that there was support from the school board, and I'm not going to call out individually, I guess, what that support looked like, but there was support from the school board to support that and the work that MAIF does. So
And the fall fund drive isn't over yet.
yes.
I know it seems like fall is done, but fall fund drive continues on. So I don't know, just thought I'd put in a little plug for the May fall fund drive at that point.
And I was gonna mention Giving Tuesday, but I believe that was last Tuesday.
It was, yeah.
So I missed that. I'm
Yeah.
a week late, but our meeting is a week late for that, so.
Yep.
That's all I have from me.
Great, thank you. MSBA.
Well, the main thing I have is just the leadership conference, which Kevin and I won't be attending. It's so weird. And then maybe the 2 of you would like to speak about the delegate assembly and how Kelly's resolution was passed with resounding support from the state delegates.
Well, I can talk about that. Lucy can also. It was the best of the resolutions in the book, but I am biased. But no, it really did. I mean, it was one of these that made perfect sense across. I mean, because part of what we're dealing with is we're 116 delegates from across the state of Minnesota. And so occasionally, not occasionally, quite often, there is differences between greater Minnesota and urban centers. And but in this case, the idea was to allow for the data to come from institutions of higher ed back to the homeschool, so that the students, if they are struggling, the counselor can know that and take action to work with the student to find out what's going on, essentially. And we had, I don't know, 6 or 7 people in addition to the 2 of us speaking to it. And, this is really really a big deal. And I mean, it was just such a win. It doesn't seem like it's a win, but it's a huge win for students. And that's the point of this. It's best for kids that they don't get penalized for going and trying a class at Century College only to find out that maybe they aren't quite ready, and take some kind of action there to mitigate that. It does go on their, if they go to college, then that goes on to their college transcripts if they're not, if they didn't do so well. So we just thought it was, Lucy was great. She gave the meat and potatoes of the thing, and I gave the big green overview. And it was 106, there was 116 delegates. 116 delegates were yays and no nays. It was a thing of beauty.
And I heard the clickers didn't work, so I'm really sorry to hear that.
Oh, you know, the worst part, I don't want to go to, it's too late, but anyway, the worst part of the being president of FBA is to have to run that delegate assembly. And so when Mike Doman was up there and the thing didn't work, I'm just like, oh, I remember. It is scary as all get out. So, but it went well when we got done by what, 11:30, I think, or so. So I don't know if you wanted to add.
I thought the assembly overall went really well. There was just one resolution that failed that I was disappointed that failed, I guess. The others, I wasn't surprised by and it was the finance ones that struggled, that had to do with benefits and things like that. But the one that surprised me was there were very passionate speakers about schools as polling places. I know in our district, we've in the past had one of our schools be a polling place, but the Minneapolis delegate got up and spoke very eloquently, I thought, about the importance of students seeing that process, access for people who don't have access to other places, that having that polling place in a school was really important. And that it didn't go the way I wanted it to. So I don't know if it passed and it should have failed or whatever, but that was the only one that I was disappointed by. Everything else I thought went really well and it was a lot of fun.
One thing that I want to call attention to this board and the soon to be new board is their 2-year terms to be on the delegate assembly. And so we're finished the second year. So there will be opportunities in the upcoming year. So that would be the fall of 2023 to be a delegate. And Mahtomedi has always really done great work in this. We've always really had a seat at the table. We've been recognized for the work that we've done in Mahtomedi statewide and some recognition federally. But this is an opportunity. We've really always had 2 people. So nudge, hint, hint. This would be a great, and it's a nice learning opportunity. So you really learn education from a statewide perspective, because Mahtomedi is quite different than certainly greater Minnesota, and then also some of the urban core districts. So highly recommend it. You learn something, and
It's a good way to meet people.
a good way to meet people. So.
Northeast Metro 916.
You heard the report tonight.
Yeah, it was great. Other board reports.
I'm really sorry, but I had community ed tonight, so I will give, oh, Kate left. Do have an abbreviated version, but I think the most important thing is that the book went live yesterday. So if you want to register, you should register. I have to tell you, the most popular class so far is the monster cake decorating class. What is going on? Apparently the one guy that we saw at the May morning thing, his dad signed him up for like $270 worth of cooking classes. It's so great. Everybody loves Alice's cooking classes. So, I mean,
Sold out.
yes, but the point is that community ed is continually looking for things to offer so that all kids have a place to fit in. And, I mean, belonging is one of the most important parts of a kid's education. I really think, well, someone else is going to be on that board in February, but the only other thing to really report is that there is still a waiting list for MAC, and a lot of that stems from staffing difficulties. Yeah, that's really it. We talked about a lot of different ideas for new classes, and the great new librarian that we had, who was a Mahtomedi graduate, is now being promoted. So now there is going to be another new librarian. And at the Wildwood Library, they have a class that's called Dogs Gone Reading, and apparently it is wildly popular. Kids go in and meet with therapy dogs, and one of Julie's dogs, I think, is in there, and it's really popular with the kids. So those are some of the fun community ed things. But let me just remind everybody the give me 1 second on the date here. December 14th is the holiday community luncheon. January 21st is the outdoor skating party, and February 10th is the dance at the District Ed Center, like those 3 dates. February 10th. So if you want to go to the community luncheon, which is really great, and the singers are coming back this year, you might have to call Kate, because I think it's pretty filled, because it's very popular.
Any other reports? Kelly.
I have curriculum advisory met, and the bulk of our meeting was to talk about some new course proposals and to get feedback from that group on and questions about the new courses. And the new high school course proposals are AP Pre-Calculus, College and Career Readiness, Intro to Business, CIS Literature. Am I right on that, Jen? Oh, not the AP Pre-Calc. Okay, scratch that one. College and Career Readiness, Intro to Business, CIS Literature, and CIS Intro to Public Speaking. Yeah, those are the new course proposals. So there was a lot of great discussion about those, and there was a lot of excitement from that group about the Intro to Business and talking about that. So good conversation, and that's all I have on that group.
Others? I have a brief report on Gifted and Talented Advisory Committee. It was the day of the snowstorm, so it had to go from in-person to virtual, and that threw my day off a little. So I missed a portion of this, but the group heard about improvements and enhancements to our programming and had an opportunity to discuss and share feedback. And that'll just continue to lead to more enhancements. And then it sounded like there was they were really able to break off into small groups and discuss an article called Serving the Whole Gifted Child, and then also just raising gifted children in general. Great. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Kelly, moved by Kevin, seconded by Julie. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Bell.